Good morning, everyone. We will slowly start because we have a very, very packed program this morning. My name is Emmanuel Kuss. I'm the General Secretary of the International Union of Property Owners. We are an umbrella association representing homeowners, co-owners, small landlords, and also a larger real estate companies association in Europe. I'm very happy to welcome you today and to co-organize this event today with FEANTSA and the ENPOR project. So ENPOR is a flagship EU project at work the past 3 years on tackling energy poverty in the private rental sector. So without further ado, because we have a very, as I say, packed agenda, I would like to give the floor to Pierre-Jean Coulon. He's from the Economic and Social Committee. He used to be the chairman of the 10th section, so the section in charge of energy in the Economic and Social Committee. He's been promoting the tackling energy poverty for the last 10 years, even more. So for a very long time, the Economic and Social Committee worked on the topic. So I'm very glad to have him today. He accepted to welcome us here today, but also to open this meeting today. So Pierre-Jean, the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot, Emmanuel. I have nothing to tell you because she said I'm working on this for a long time. 11 years ago, yes, this is true, I thought that there is a big problem in Europe. I'm coming from France, and before France, I was working in Africa. I was working in Africa in the field of access to energy. Access to energy for the at this time, more than 2 billion of people in the world who doesn't have any energy. Some little piece of wood sometimes. And when back in Europe and entering in this interesting European body, which is the European Economic and Social Committee, I saw with terror that in Europe, in my country, France, but also in Romania, also in Hungary, also in Spain, in Germany, and all the country you represent, some people, a lot of people, maybe 80 million of people, of citizens, doesn't have the possibility to pay their energy, mainly electricity. It's why I decide to write short paper, avis d'initiative, own initiative opinion on this topic. And we try to give some recommendation, ideas regarding civil society I represent. Friends from the Commission, friends from the European Parliament work together with us, or now we work with them. At this time it was the contrary. At this time I wrote on 12 February 2013. It's absolutely necessary to protect individuals from energy poverty and to prevent their social exclusion. It's important to take action to reduce the factors of structural vulnerability by guaranteeing basic access to energy at reasonable and stable prices, and so on. In this topic, I ask to give Europe an energy poverty observatory. I spoke at this time with Commissioner in Energy, who was Günther Oettinger. I spoke after with Maros Šefčovič, with DG NR, and so on. And 3 years after, it's a long time in Europe to decide something, you know. 3 years after, European Commission decide to give European an energy poverty observatory. For me, it's not at this time the best thing, and it needs to be moved a little bit more and to be involved by the European members. Schön, time to you after. Okay. Schön, sit down. So, actually, we are going to try to, every year, organize an event around this topic. I'm happy to inform you that next year, in May, beginning of May, during the Belgian presidency, and with the support of Hungary presidency, not so easy to have the support of Hungary presidency, but we will organize an event. You will be invited in this event. Emmanuel, you will be invited as your UIPI, but also colleagues, friends from FEANTSA, we know. And I didn't know before today ENPOR. Seems to be very interesting. So, please to give me your address, coordinates, and so on. We will invite you. Why to invite you? For blah blah? Of course not. To have the true reality of what happened in the countries. Because the problem of energy poverty is, of course, a problem of structural problem, but also some different problems in the countries, and not only at the level of the member state, but regional and local problems. So today is an important day for you. I'm sure, I hope you will have success in your debates. I hope, I'm sure, you will give some ideas, not only to you, but to us, to civil society in Europe, to the European Parliament. Sean Kelly is here and is very involved in, to the representative of the European Commission, DG NR, of course, and please help them, help us, help you, because the result will only go through citizen, by the citizen, with the citizen, and for the citizen.
Thank you, Pierre-Jean. I think we can give a round of applause. Thank you for this introduction. As you say, you've been involved in this issue for a very, very long time, and of course, energy poverty is a multidimensional issue. But in the last, as you mentioned, 10, 15 years, the EU has been addressing this issue with various legislative and non-legislative initiatives, and most recently within the Green Deal package and measure to tackle energy crisis. So I'm very glad to have today with us Veronica Marx. She's the team leader on energy poverty in the DG NR unit on consumer, local initiative, and just transition. So Veronica, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Emmanuel.
Dear Mr. Coulon, dear Mr. Kelly, Ms. Kos, dear participants, it's really a pleasure to be here today. The figures on energy poverty in the EU have reminded us on the vulnerability and the exposure that EU citizens face in view of high energy prices. In 2022, approximately 40 million people in the EU were unable to keep their homes adequately warm. This represented 9.3% of the EU population, and a sharp increase from 2021, when the percentage was only 6.9. Figures for this year are likely to be close to this data, considering the long impact of energy crisis, especially on consumers. While 40 million energy poor are 40 million too many, we expect that this figure would indeed have been bigger without the numerous European, national and regional measures that have been adopted to mitigate the impact of high energy prices on citizens. A cornerstone of this support were the emergency measures proposed by the European Commission in September 22, which included exceptional demand reduction measures aiming to reduce the cost of the electricity for consumers and a temporary revenue cap on the infra-marginal electricity producers while redistributing the sector's surplus revenues to final customers. The European Commission also adopted, among others, a proposal for a reform of the electricity market design. In addition to improving the way the long-term market works and accelerating the deployment of renewable energy and the phase-out of gas, the proposal for this reform also includes a substantial improvement to the consumer's rights to fixed-term contracts, to a supply of last resort, and a disconnection ban for vulnerable consumers. In parallel, similar provisions to improve consumer protection are being discussed in the gas package. However, while these proposals are still being negotiated by co-legislators, still more needs to be done to structurally support the most vulnerable in our society, namely those that cannot fulfill their basic needs for energy, those that cannot afford to keep their homes warm in winter or sufficiently cool in summer, and as a consequence suffer in terms of well-being and health. This is why the Commission developed a guidance with an accompanying staff working document on how energy poverty is addressed in the current EU legal framework, on how it can be diagnosed, and with what measures it can be addressed. This guidance is particularly timely for Member States' deadline to update their national energy and climate plans by June 24 and support them also in the preparation of their social climate plans that they will have to submit in 25. The guidance analyzes the different measures and actions that Member States use to ensure affordability of energy, especially by providing a social safety net, and particularly in times of very high energy prices when really swift action is needed. But it puts specific emphasis on the need to prioritize structural measures that address energy poverty at its root causes through investments into energy efficiency and access to renewable energy. Such measures have long-lasting impacts, support households in energy poverty to access cheaper and renewable energy, and to use it more efficiently, thus contributing to the Union's objective of a fair energy transition. These measures, these structural measures, should be prioritized along with complementary relevant social measures and preferably be targeted. The structural measures that the Commission has, that we have included in the guidance, cover mainly two main areas. One is energy efficiency, which is one of the sectors through which energy poverty can be addressed. This concerns energy efficiency, energy efficient appliances, but above all energy efficient housing, which beyond reducing energy bills for heating and cooling, also provide thermal comfort and well-being for the people who live there. The EU legal framework already provides legal obligations, such as energy savings obligation, who have proven to be one of the most successful structural measures to achieving energy efficiency. We have seen for Member States who have already incorporated provisions for households experiencing energy poverty in their energy efficiency obligation schemes. However, in terms of energy efficiency, the housing sector is probably the sector where the most improvements still will have to be made, but where not only energy poverty but also overall well-being can be achieved. The guidance by the Commission raises and discusses the barriers that persist for renovations, such as split incentives. It sets out a typology of split incentives and proposes measures and good practices on how to address them. It also sets out good practices on how to avoid renovictions. And then lastly, it raises that a different approach that needs to be addressed when to address cooling poverty,
adopting more of a neighborhood or urban planning approach, which is necessary rather than a single building approach for winter energy poverty. Access to renewable energy is another major domain that can help alleviating energy poverty. Decarbonizing the energy system through the phasing out of fossil fuels and replacing them with renewables is key in the Union's fight against climate change. Supporting households affected by energy poverty in their switch from fossil fuels to cheaper renewables is a central element in tackling energy poverty. The recommendation further looks into good practices related to information sharing and communication that are crucial to address the most vulnerable in our society. Boosting the right sets of skills for policymakers, but as well as for professionals working in the energy or social sectors are also an important element that cannot be neglected when tackling energy poverty. It's important to empower consumers to have the skills to engage in the energy and digital transition and benefit from their advantages. Lastly, of course, all these measures need to be financed. The EU financing instruments provide substantial resources to finance structural measures. Considering that households affected by energy poverty lack own resources and have limited access normally to commercial loans, public financial support is paramount to help them finance energy renovation works and energy efficiency improvements. This brings me now back to the months ahead. We are now in a much better place this year than last year in terms of energy prices. Energy prices have decreased and our gas storages are filled. Nevertheless, energy prices in the retail market continue to be higher than prior to 2021, and many consumers still face difficulties paying their bills, and the cost of living remains high. In October this year, 23rd of October, the Commission therefore facilitated the renewal of the Joint Declaration on Enhanced Consumer Protection for the coming winter. The first of such declaration was signed last December. While the guiding principles of the Joint Declaration and the proposed measures remain valid, the renewed declaration reflects latest developments, including the electricity market proposal, the Commission's recommendation on energy poverty that I have explained, and advancing discussions on the gas decarbonisation package. This joint declaration is an important testament to the commitment to protect consumers during times which have been challenging for many. By working together, the energy industry, regulator, consumer groups and policymakers, we can help to ensure that all consumers are protected and they do have access to affordable and reliable energy supply. No one should be faced with an eat or heat choice this winter. Many thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think it's a very, very important topic. And as you say, there are lots been done the last years on the issue, notably the guidance, notably the joint declaration, and the advancement of the last file of the Green Deal dealing with energy poverty. And one of these very important files is, of course, the Energy Performance of Building Directive is addressing energy poverty. And the Parliament has been very much involved in the topic, promoting tackling energy poverty in the EPBD. And I'm very glad to have today with us a long-standing member of the European Parliament, Mr. Sean Kelly, is a member of the ITRE committee and is also one of the shadow rapporteurs on the Energy Performance of Building Directive. Thank you.
Thank you very much and good morning everybody. Pleased to be here. And I'd say at the outset I would say one of the hallmarks of an inclusive functioning democracy is that you're constantly trying to raise living standards, and particularly those of the low income area. And indeed that reflects what the European Union has tried to do since it was set up, and has done so successfully. It's a union or a project of peace and prosperity. And most countries, once they join the European Union, they prosper. My own country is probably as good an example as you could get. When we joined initially, our GDP on average compared to the other member states was around 58%. Now, as a result of direct grants and the single market, we are one of the two wealthiest member states. GDP of around 122%. What applies to member states must also apply to individuals. And of course, you will never probably have total equality, but you have to be constantly looking at trying to raise those in poverty out of it. And energy poverty is, unfortunately, a critical issue that touches the lives of millions across Europe. As Veronique was saying, 41 million Europeans unable to keep their homes adequately warm. This multifaceted challenge is rooted in a combination of low income, high energy expenses, and poor energy efficiency in buildings. The three need to be tackled together. From a broader perspective, the EU, as Veronique pointed out, has been actively addressing this issue in legislative initiatives, especially in the context of climate policies, energy transition, and the current energy crisis. Directives like the gas and electricity ensure the protection of vulnerable consumers, and the energy efficiency and the energy performance of buildings directives required measures to alleviate energy poverty alongside efficiency efforts. Historically, the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive has tried to address energy poverty. The original directive outlined actions within national renovation strategies, prioritising the renovation of the least efficient buildings. Building on this foundation, the recast proposal takes a significant leap forward, recognising the crucial role of energy poverty alleviation in minimum energy performance standards for our building sector. The Commission and the Parliament, in various reports, have emphasised the increasing significance of lower energy bills, especially in the face of soaring energy prices. Envisioning a scenario where those living in poorly performing buildings and facing energy poverty benefit from well-renovated structures, reduced energy costs, and protection against market increases and volatility is an important part of this proposal. A notable shift is seen in the new EPPD for a broader term, vulnerable households, encompassing not only those in energy poverty, but also households with lower middle income, specifically exposed to high energy costs and lacking means to renovate their homes. To counter energy poverty effectively, national renovation plans must include support schemes with realistic targets and measures, in my view. In the Parliament report, we emphasise the need for financial measures providing a premium for deep renovations, targeted grants and subsidies for vulnerable households. While still in the middle of negotiations, the Parliament report introduced controversial yet crucial requirements for Member States to detail roadmaps on the reduction of energy poverty. Although this aspect hasn't been fully discussed yet, we do hope that the provision will be maintained in the final report. I strongly believe in the benefits of one-stop shops as innovative hubs streamlining the renovation process. These hubs offer comprehensive support, bridging the gap between citizens and the broader effort to decarbonise our building stock. One-stop shops offering dedicated services for those affected by energy poverty are a positive addition, streamlining the renovation process and connecting citizens with professionals. To ensure a fair energy transition and alleviate energy poverty, we need to address various aspects, including energy prices, housing conditions, and efficiency solutions. Providing an EU energy poverty definition is a significant step forward, but we must also consider indicators and monitoring procedures for effective policy implementation. While social policy options fall within Member States' responsibility, the EU can propose measures linked to its shared energy policy competence. Several EU policy measures to tackle energy poverty are already underway, and this area is likely to be strengthened in the future. In conclusion, Our collective efforts are crucial in addressing energy poverty comprehensively. By working together, we can ensure that no one is left behind in our pursuit of a sustainable, efficient and equitable future for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this introduction. I think there's a lot going on. Today we are here with some people from 3 flagship projects from the Commission, financed by CINEA, on how to tackle energy poverty in different sectors. So I'm sure many of them have a lot of guidance, lots of tools they can propose in order to help to draft these national renovation strategies. We had an event at the OISEF this year on how this outcome of ENPOR, the tool developed within ENPOR, can help to draft these national renovation strategies. So I think I would just open the floor because I'm sure there are many questions, and I know you all 3 are very busy, so we'll have to leave very soon. So I think it's very, anyone has any question, please raise your hand, introduce yourself. No question. I'm amazed.
We were clear.
For the panelists. Oh, I have question if no one has, but please. Vous pouvez poser votre question en français. Oui, tout le monde comprend le français. Yes. Yes, I will translate. Donc pourquoi vous êtes... Ah, no one speaks. Well, majority of people speak mainly English. But if you want to ask a question, si vous voulez demander en français, moi je suis. Ah. Okay. Okay, then I will ask a question maybe. You were talking about the negotiation on the EPBD. One of the articles, the key article for the tackling energy poverty and the social safeguard is Article 15. Maybe could you tell us, I know the negotiation on this very specific article have already evolved partly, so maybe can you tell us a bit more? Also on the part on one-stop shop, I think it's an additional article will be dedicated to one-stop shop, so maybe you can just let us know a bit more how the negotiations are going on these two articles.
The last trilogue we had was open-ended, which means it started around 5:30 on Thursday evening and finished at 4:30 that morning. We made a lot of progress in quite a number of areas. Obviously, we have another trilogue coming up in the 7th of December. We hope to finalise a lot of it there because nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. But in relation to energy poverty, I think that we will get included, particularly ensuring that whatever is agreed under MEPS, that the worst performing buildings will be prioritised in all the Member States' plans. The Member States are looking for more flexibility to be able to adjust things themselves, but we'll be insisting that whatever targets are set, that the low income and therefore the worst performing buildings are prioritised. Because it would be very easy to ignore that and to go with those who can afford to renovate, and that would be part of their overall target. The one-stop shops, we have discussed that. I think there's agreement that they're crucial. They'll also have to be functional and available. We're talking about measures like that a one-stop shop has to be within 90 kilometres of any person's house, so that you just wouldn't have one, we'll say, in a country based in the capital and not available to people. So we haven't those finalised, but that's where we're moving, and I think that's a practical way. And if the Council come with the same attitude as they came at the last meeting, then I think we will finalise I have to say that the Spanish ambassador was very good at the last meeting. It was his third trilogue that day, but he was on top of the brief and he said, let's do business. So if they come with the same attitude, then I think we can get a lot of what we want to include, especially in relation to energy poverty, because that's going to make the huge difference, both in terms of affecting those in vulnerable households, but also more effectively, you're going to get a better bang for your buck by renovating a poorer performing house or apartment than one that is a high grade at the moment. So, hopeful, but not certain.
Thank you for that. Any question from the floor, Vlasis?
Hello, good morning. Thank you for the presentation. Actually, this goes to all of the three panelists here. I'm the coordinator of the ENPOR project, which you mentioned before. So, one of the key strategies of alleviating energy poverty is also the decarbonization of heating in the buildings. And we know that's a very controversial aspect. It has spurred a lot of debates, etc. One of the instruments used now in the EU is the new ETS system, which will be in 2027, a link to the Social Climate Fund and all this nice debate. Most studies have shown, though, that the Social Climate Fund is not enough to cover the real costs, even from the low-income groups, if we take the first income quintile and the second income quintile. So what are the strategies that you see, given now that the new practically piece of legislation we're going to have is the EPPD, which will be out, and the eco-design maybe. The ED is ready and it has quite some important steps there. How do you see that we could really tackle this issue structurally now? Because only the ETS2 is, and the SCF is not enough for that.
No, it's clear that the public funding can never be enough. I mean, for any kind of transition to be made, there's always need for private funding. Public funding can never cover all the needs. However, also in the guidance that we published, we underlined that, of course, for the most vulnerable and low-income people and energy-poor people income, that public funding should be prioritized for those people because they cannot access or often cannot access commercial loans. But I do think it's very important that we start working much more closely with the private financing sector to come up with innovative financing mechanisms of how we can allow or we can facilitate access of people to private funding and private support.
Yeah, I agree. And finance is obviously going to be crucial in this area. And one of the reasons that some member states were kicking back against it and that there was so much opposition to it in the Parliament, also reflecting the views of the MEPs' respective member states, was the cost. But the cost of not doing so is going to be more into the future. And also, of course, we're not going to reduce our emissions and reach our targets if we don't renovate our buildings. So you can't have legislation on the one hand that compels you to do something, and then member states on the other hand saying, oh, we can't do it, it costs too much. There are plenty of opportunities for innovative financing, and one of the things we're talking about is green mortgages, where a mortgage would be available to somebody the same as a mortgage we fill to somebody building a new house for innovations at cheap rates. Also, the social fund can be utilised. But I think, myself, if this is to be really effective, it has to go down to grassroots. So member states will have targets, but they will have to subdivide them for each municipality. So the municipality has a target, and they can't be waiting for someone else to do it. And I think if we don't do that, we're not going to be effective. And with the EIB, and particularly InvestEU, InvestEU is not being utilised enough. I remember when it came in first, about under Jean-Claude Juncker, it was called the Juncker Plan, and we used to get updates on it, and the commissioner responsible, Katainen, I remember he telling us after a couple of years of the plan that it had been utilised in a suburb in Paris to renovate 40,000 homes. So the collective action is very important. I think, Veronique, you mentioned neighbourhood. Neighbourhood action, collective action will make a big difference. Because if you can mobilise the community, and they are there to be mobilised, people want to reduce emissions, people want more comfortable homes, people want healthier homes. So if the supports are given to them, they'll do so. So the pillar banks will have to be more or less compelled to let green financing available at the lowest possible interest rate. Member states, and I'm pleased to say my own member state is doing it, will have to give generous grants to those who want to do it, and we have to utilise European funds. And also, which hasn't been done yet, we will have to allow phased renovation. Compelling somebody to do the whole lot together won't be suitable for them, because often it would mean leaving their home and finding someplace else to go. So the grants must reflect that. So, okay, you can have an overall plan. You're going to do it within 2, 3 years or 4 years, whatever. And for phase 1, you get this. Phase 2, you get this. And phase 3, you get this. I think that's the way you will do it. And then I think we'll get more people on board. But you're absolutely right. Without finance, it's not going to happen. Money makes the world go round, whether we like it or not. Thank you.
A few words. What we need is fair and just transition. It's why it's absolutely necessary to work with all social partners, NGOs, as well regional and local authorities. And when you look at the regional and local level, there are also some possibility, financial possibility. There are local and regional financial systems. And this we have to move, this we have to involve. And sometimes we only speak about the national or European level, but there are possibilities, financial possibilities at local and regional level, mainly in the big countries. And this is important for a fair and just transition.
A question from the floor?
Hello, I'm Edoardo Pandolfi from Enea. I have a question on one-stop shop. So we spoke about funds. Do you envisage a specific model for one-stop shop to develop and spread in the different countries? Because one problem was that in Italy, for example, we had different one-stop shops that were able to get activated through EU funds. But after when the EU funds finished, basically it was very difficult to find additional funds to keep them running. So I don't know if you have some thought on this or some solution.
Yeah, you're right. It is one thing for us to be including one-stop shops, which is very important, but then they have to be functional. And I was a bit taken aback recently when I met some people back in my own constituency who found the one-stop shop, which was supposed to be functioning, wasn't functioning as it was. First of all, they were being charged a lot to access a lot of the provisions, and then they weren't given the variety, let's say, of choices. So you're absolutely right. The one-stop shops, first of all, I think they have to be free to consumers. Why would you go paying to get advice and you may not be able to? And this was big money now. It wasn't just 50 or 60 euros, a couple thousand. So I think that has to be addressed. And also their functions have to be very clear. And people will have to be given the information quickly and effectively in relation to the grants available to them, the green financing that's available to them, and the choice of builders, and also the choice or the variety of equipment, etc., that could be used. And if you do one right, then it's easy to replicate it after that. But I think at the moment, because it isn't properly embedded in legislation, the one-stop shops that have propped up are just done at some level or other, and people are probably using it to make money for themselves and give the impression that they're there to help everybody. So from that discussion I have had back in my own constituency, I said we must look at this in more detail and define what we think would be the best way to help citizens, because that's the only function, essentially, of a one-stop shop, is to help citizens, make it easier for them, give them the choices, they can go home, look at it, come back and then decide. Thank you for that question.
Just if I can just add quickly something. I mean, we have heard from experiences in countries or at local level where also sometimes the first step towards the person concerned is a very important one. This can be done by frontline workers, for example, social workers or health workers that actually enter the house and are in direct contact with people. They might diagnose that, oh, there's a problem, this person might be in energy poverty, and then support them to have contact with the one-stop shops where then they can go and ask for further support. So sometimes it's also important, this kind of trust relationship where the person who's direct in contact with the low income or the energy poor person, to make this link then to the one-stop shop where further support can be provided.
Thank you for that. I think you said it all. Basically, that's all the point of today's conference, actually. So to massify this grassroots initiative, both for tackling energy poverty from one-stop shop. As you rightly say, you need this direct contact, and this for one-stop shop, for example, you require lots of manpower. Tackling energy poverty requires to involve all social workers and everyone who is on the ground, so local authority, etc. So that's really what we are going to try to show today. So I'm very glad that you mentioned that. So it's a very nice opening for the rest of the morning. So thank you for the three of you for being here this morning and for taking the time to be with us. So we will come back to you on sending you, of course, our recommendation and the work we have done in this project, because I think there are three of them presenting today. So I think there are lots of things to learn there. Have a fruitful Merci. Merci, Pierre-Jean.
We look forward to that, see that to us.
Yes, thank you.
Let's get it right.
Yeah. So I will invite the next panelist.
Yes.
As I say, we moved from the policy side, from the European policy side, into something more practical. It's still related to EU, because it's also thanks to the EU that these three, let's say, flagships European projects could do the work they have done in the past 3 years. So I will invite Lazis. And Brefni, you are, sorry, I didn't see you. And of course, Laura. So we are keeping the time, I'm quite amazed. So as I said, energy poverty has been in the, you see, please. Yeah. So good morning. So I was saying that energy poverty has been one of the topics tackled by CINEA. And we have today with us three representatives from three EU projects tackling different aspects of energy poverty. The first one is the one presenting today, so ENPOR, and I have together with me Flazis. I'm still not sure how to pronounce your family name after all these years, but Oikomu, right? Okay, you say it, okay. He's the managing director of the Institute of European Energy and Climate Policy, and ENPOR is tackling energy poverty in the private rented sector. That's why it's an important topic for me and my association. Then I have also with us Brefni Lennon, so much easier to pronounce, thank you, from Energy Measures, and he's dealing with what we just discussed now, so direct household engagement, so that's also very important. And then I have Lara Palancikova from COMAX. So COMAX is dealing with something even more difficult, which is tackling energy poverty in Central Eastern European countries and former Russian Soviet countries. So, and as we know, this sector is probably the most difficult one to tackle together with the private rented sector. So I will give you the floor. I don't know, I have no preferences, so maybe ladies first if you want.
I think I have prepared the slides.
Yes.
Okay, good morning, everyone. So today I would like to present briefly the COMACT project and tell you in what ways this project has been innovative and meaningful initiative fighting energy poverty. Okay, so first of all, I would mention that the COMACT project is EU Horizon 2020 project, which started in September 2020 and will finish soon in February 2024. There has been 10 partners on the project implementing the project in 5 countries of the Central and Eastern European region. Including Habitat for Humanity International, where I come from, and this organization was the project lead. I would like to briefly talk about the context of the countries where the COMACT has been implemented, the context of the Central and Eastern European region, as there are quite few important things to consider when speaking of energy poverty alleviation efforts in this region. So the CEE region is the most energy poor in Europe. This is mainly due to high energy prices and poor energy efficiency of the buildings, including the heating systems and household appliances, which obviously contributes to really low quality of housing and subsequent low quality of living and of life chances of people occupying this housing. The second important thing to consider is that when we speak of CEE region, we speak of predominantly privately owned housing stock. And what is more, there is really a large percentage of multifamily apartment blocks. This has to do with historical developments like mass privatization in the 90s, along with the deconstruction of the social safety net and also the collective maintenance mechanisms of the buildings were abandoned during these times. So all of these together contribute to and make it contribute to really low renovation rates of multi-apartment buildings. And having this context in mind, what we try to do with the COMACT was to develop a new approach that would make energy efficient improvements in multifamily apartment buildings affordable, that would lower the costs of the energy costs, and then would contribute to the elimination of energy poverty. And we did this by working along 3 dimensions, or 3 legs of the approach, as we call them. And these were basically the community, financial, and technical dimensions of the approach. So COMACT has aimed to empower and activate the communities of homeowners. Then it has aimed to develop and adapt financial tools that provide financing for low-income families. And last but not least, it has aimed to optimize the technical solutions that would provide the most favorable cost-benefit ratio for energy efficiency improvements in multifamily apartment buildings. And this way, working along these 3 dimensions or legs, we managed to address major factors behind energy poor level of buildings. And these are capacity to pay, capacity to organize, and capacity to implement or to find technical optimal solutions. And I would conclude by saying or sharing the one of the most important observations that we have arrived to, and that's that the energy poor buildings cannot be renovated unless you address the three major factors behind properly and at the same time. And here is the slide on the resource centers that were developed under the project in 3 countries where we piloted the project, but I will not talk about this. I will conclude my presentation, so thank you very much. This is the COMACT project website where you can find all the relevant resources, publications that we have developed under the project, and many others.
Thank you. You're very good at keeping the time. I'm amazed. So it's just a short introduction, but of course there will be questions. I actually have a couple of questions on your slide, so I will come back to that later. But I would like to give the floor to you, Brevni. So if we go back and we finish with the host today.
Good stuff. Thank you. Okay, hello everyone. So my name is Breffney Lennon. As I say, I'm along with my colleague Niall Dunphy. We coordinate the Energy Measures project. And again, we have a lot of the key themes that have already been discussed today explored in this project as well. We're one of 12 partners across sort of northwestern Europe and Eastern Europe as well. And the partners that we have brought together for this project have a strong record already in engaging with energy vulnerable consumers. So there's significant expertise there in understanding the practices and behaviours around the lived experience of those in energy poverty themselves. So the first thing we decided to do is take a step back and just understand and work with householders to capture their knowledge and experience of energy, and kind of understand the ways in which they use energy and how they intertwine with their everyday lives. So it's very much a bottom-up approach that we took. As part of that, then we would, as we engage with the householders, we would provide technical measures that would kind of help them to kind of co-understand their houses as well, and the kind of the issues that they're facing. So we deployed tailored packages as well of low-cost energy measures, and a bespoke energy change plan as well to each individual household. And it was to kind of help them understand and encourage, enable and support them in. So a lot of the time, sometimes, for example, people didn't have the knowledge of where to go. So it's just pointing them in the right direction was a significant help to them. And then obviously there was the data collection as well that was needed. So we've been struggling with that a little bit, but we're kind of on track. I don't think none of us have had an easy ride with that, but it is coming together. One of the noticeable policy outputs for ourselves is out of work through that we did with energy measures. We're publishing a book which is due on the 1st of December, and it's taking a global south, global north perspective on the lived experience of energy poverty. So very much the experiences we had, obviously, energy poverty being as a kind of conceptual understanding is kind of developed in the global north, but there are significant perspectives there as well that we need to bring in from the global south and other kind of jurisdictions as well. And I think one of the good the strengths of the Energy Measures project was that it had that sort of say the Western European and Eastern European context there as well, to understand the different kind of say the similarities, but also the kind of the differences that need to be understood as well. So our energymeasures.eu is the website as well, and there's a number of deliverables there as well. And one of the key things that we kind of looked at as well is to get difficulty in identifying energy poor households, because a lot of the time they're hard to reach or hard to identify, and obviously for a number of different reasons, depending on it can be to do with kind of say pride in kind of their own self-identity and what I'm not in energy poverty. That can be one context, but there's also many others. So it's trying to find ways to identify the energy poor households and then engage with them. There's one of the key things that we did actually come across as well, which is quite useful, and I'll conclude on this, was that we were able to actually work with energy providers in where, say, to kind of bring in they had kind of access to wealth, so the funding that they have, like some energy providers in Ireland, for example, have a fund there to help, kind of where they try to identify energy poor households and give them support. So, for example, extra insulation, that type of thing. But they don't have access to the people themselves. So we were able to bring in the NGOs and the, sort of say on our project that were, and kind of have, them work together to, so we would kind of like almost like a referral. We would refer people onto the energy providers, and then they would fund renovations in the household that the householder wouldn't ordinarily be able to afford. So there was nice kind of outputs there and developments as well. So I'll conclude on that anyway. So and thank you. That's great.
Very interesting. I guess also a very important topic when it comes to. Sorry, you want to give a round of applause? So no, I was saying it's very interesting because we talk about energy saving obligation, and the fact that you involve as well the energy companies is also probably also linked to the energy savings obligation, partly at least. And you also say that it's very difficult to identify energy poor, and it's even more difficult to identify energy poor in the private rental sector. So that's why we have today Flasis.
Yes. Thanks a lot, and welcome everybody also from our side as ENPOR project. So I'm Lasis Economou, that's my name, and I'm the managing director of ICP. We've been leading the ENPOR project over the last 3 years. First of all, I would agree with both speakers. We faced more or less the same challenges also in our side. Our project, of course, were focused more on the private rented sector, so we didn't have to deal with any social housing and all that, and that creates a unique circumstance on its own and a unique case study. If we say at a glance and we just have a flashback on what we try to do, first of all, we try to understand what is the situation in the private rented sector and if we have really policies working them. And the answer would be no. We have very few policies working and focused on the private rented sector, even within the framework of energy efficiency or energy renovations or energy poverty types of policies. That's where we try to influence it, and I would say, complementing here to what my colleague said, that the problem that we cannot identify energy poor households has to do also that if the countries have a known energy poverty definition, and we see that in several countries there is still no energy poverty definition. That's a real issue, and the new EED, I think the new Energy Efficiency Directive, is a strong weapon to tackle that. It has specific Article 8 that it has 3 ways of defining, etc. And I think we are on a good track, and this will help out a lot of member states. That's where actually our project also, I would say, has taken a lot of stock from. The second part, what we aim to do was to support specific policies in member states, in the 7 member states that were represented in the project, and the policies were actually coming from the perspective of energy efficiency obligations, as it was mentioned also before. You see that this is a very strong weapon for tackling energy poverty, and as I said, I would really compliment the ED for that now, as it has also a ring fence for achieving energy savings in energy poor groups, and that can be further used, and we have good examples for that from our project. The other types of policies used were information and advice measures, which have a strong dynamic in the energy poor groups, especially when we need to reach out to tenants and landlords to some extent. And the other policies were the grants, the standard type of subsidies or grants for energy renovation, which often have the problem that we don't have real renovations happening in the residential buildings where low-income groups live or energy-poor groups live due to the known split incentive problems. I think we'll have time to discuss about that further on today. And the last one was we had to monitor actually what we did over the years and monitor on how these policies are progressing and how these dimensions of energy poverty in the private rented sector are progressing, and that's why we have also a site which was called Energy Poverty Dashboard, which I'll show you in a bit. Now, going to the key findings, and I would not go through all of them, of course. The most important one is that we must have a kind of a well-balanced mixtures of policies and measures, meaning one, there is no blueprint or there is no one policy that would suit everything. Each country has its own circumstances. The private rented sector is quite a complicated issue on its own due to the tenancy rules, due to the market structure, due to the percentage of energy poor groups living in under tenancy. Also, we know that due to the economic situations and the energy crisis and all that, landlords were not also able to invest easily on that, even if they could resolve the split incentive problems. So it needs a fine balance between different types of measures, and that's why we see that normally energy efficiency obligations is a strong tool. Grants are also quite strong, but also we need information, we need bottom-up information to the low-income groups. Then, in order to understand who should pay for their investment, and that's, I think, the big dilemma also from UIPI here always, colleagues, is that we have to understand well the benefits from both, that accrue both to the landlord and the tenant, quantify them clearly, and then try to see where the fair share of the investment should take place. Another important element is that these policies should work out better on a bottom-up way, meaning as they deal with two conflicting in a way, but also supportive groups, landlords and tenants, we need to design them bottom-up. We had an experience we did with the REACT group, it's called, which were actually taking out all the key stakeholders in every country who are working in the implementation of the policies, let alone energy efficiency obligations or whatever other policy. We brought them on the table with a lot of frequent communication, trying to co-design the follow-ups of these policies and how to customize them to address the split incentive and to address the energy poverty in the specific private rented sector. And I think we have got some good examples out of it, which we can discuss. Then, the multiple benefits, it has to be in the debate, because this actually makes the entire difference if we quantify the success or of a policy and actually who should pay for something. And the participation of the municipalities was also mentioned in the morning. We see that in several countries the municipalities have a very important role, also due that they have funding schemes for alleviating energy poverty, also so they are in contact with the citizens to some extent, and they are also parts of the operational programs that they receive, and we fully believe that the municipalities can play a very important role in setting up and this type of specific policies for the private rented sectors. Then how to carefully examine the application of regulatory measures and not distort the market. We have the evictions heard in the past, and we should avoid this type of situations. There are specific measures, there are specific tools to avoid that, and we believe that if we are frank and transparent in all the co-design process of the policies, it can work out and you can have a higher social acceptance of when what actually a subsidy rate for a landlord or a tenant should be the ideal number, and let it work in the market. This is the energy poverty dashboard that I mentioned, and you can have a look actually on our website. I would say a significant contribution, as we were working closely with the Energy Poverty Advisory Hub over these years, is that we developed also an own indicator for measuring the energy poverty in the private rented sector. You can see, I mean, this is what you get here as colors, which shows actually to what extent we have high energy poverty in the specific market segment, and it takes various parameters into account. This is also one of the discussions we have, as we need to complement indicators for addressing this energy poverty, and I think that the Commission is also along this line. So you can visit our website and get all the required information. Thank you.
Thank you, Vlasis. We'll open the floor, but just maybe one or two questions first on your presentation from my side, if I'm privileged to be the one asking the questions. So just Vlasis, one interesting thing I think today here in Brussels is you just mentioned the various parameters to take into account when measuring energy poverty. Maybe can you say a few words about these parameters? Oops, sorry.
Yes, for the measuring of energy poverty, we have the standard indicators being used under the Energy Poverty Advisory Hub, and here my colleagues also from the EPAH that they're being long lasted. And now we've got the new indicators popping up that have to take into account the tenancy issues, the percentage of the market that belongs to the tenants or the landlords, quality of housing, incomes. So all these things make composite indicators and can help us better see. We see that actually there is no there is no clear picture within the EU of how and what actually affects. We all know that all these parameters affect the increase of the energy poverty to some extent. So it's important that we monitor it consistently from now on, and we see how this market is developing, because the private rented sector is developing as a market, and it has the lowest quality housing, and this creates even higher problems if we take into account also the external parameters. So we strongly believe that, and I think that's part of the ENPOR, that we have to have clear data and consistent annual now or biannual data, depending on when the public data are out always.
Might just add to that as well. Again, I'm plugging the book a little bit, but that we're produced for next month. But we do explore the difficulty about indicators as well there. So, and the kind of the evolution of, as you said, about how, you know, what indicators do we prioritize. And it's interesting from our perspective now as well. From the global, like a lot of the time, global south, global north seems to be delineated a lot, whereas with globalization and everything else, a lot of the issues faced in global south countries are being faced in global north and vice versa. So it's we tackle that in the book as well, and those the chapters that are produced by Energy Measures colleagues are open access as well, so they will be open access. So hopefully they'll be a help as well in understanding a bit more.
Lara, just from your presentation, I think you mentioned that you develop financial tools specific for your sector and your regions, and also technical solutions. I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit more about these two. Would be quite interested to see your model.
Yes, so there has been developed a financial toolbox based on the experience that we had in our pilot countries. And based on the analysis of the existing financial schemes and solutions providing financing to low-income families. What I can say almost by the end of the project regarding some financial observations that we have arrived to is that without a subsidy, no deep renovation is possible. This is what we have experienced working with the communities of homeowners. This is what we have realized. And what is important to add is that even if there is money, even if there are existing subsidies or existing loans, or even if the households have quite sufficient income, the communities of homeowners can still be in very difficult position because they can hardly make decisions. So this addresses the importance of addressing those three legs that I've mentioned. Having financial schemes and solutions is of course not everything, but also just having, for instance, assistance system set up, or some facilitation system for homeowners, how they can come together, have one voice and agree on the next steps of the renovations. That's also not enough if there are not appropriate financial triggers. And the last scenario is even if there is, let's say, money, and even if there is community empowerment, or the community of homeowners is powerful, there still might not be the energy efficiency interventions might still not provide the best technical solutions. So I would repeat by saying that this is what we really think is really important, combining work along all these three legs. So not only finance, but community engagement and appropriate technical optimal solutions.
Thank you. I think this is valid in all sectors, actually. I would say this is the key three legs in all Europe. So, and indeed, in decision-making in multi-apartment building is one of the key challenges as well. So it's not only the split incentive, but also, I mean, this is a sort of split incentive as well, so it is. And it's also tackled in the EED, so it's also partly addressed. So, energy efficiency directly.
Could I maybe add on that one? Yeah, because that's an interesting, and it's good that you passed the ball to us on the split incentive. Indeed, this is what was mentioned, that with the existing of finance or not, and how important it is. What we saw also in the private rented sector, and we see it, I think, is that the role of the split incentive is finally the determinant one, and we really need values behind it. We really need to understand in every country how exactly the benefits, that's starting from that, as I said, accrue to the landlord or the tenant, and then we can decide who should contribute, and based on that then the state or the government can better customize the support and the percentage rate that should be given to a landlord based on the quality of the housing. To help out this debate, we also generated a tool. It's a simple tool that you can all use for your countries, which is actually makes this type of calculation based on the value of the house, based on other benefits and multiple benefits that are from a renovation, and there we find kind of a percentage range of how much the benefits are split between the landlord and the tenant, and this could somehow justify also the rent that should be increased to some extent to cover this perspective based on who pays in the end of the day. We know that the rent increase is a very difficult topic always, and it's, I mean, especially the property owners face it, and it's also a sensitive political topic. But if we provide transparent and real values to that and how much the benefits are and who gains actually from the renovation, then I think it is easier to come up to a logical discussion about how much this financing should be on that. Okay. I think these type of tools, maybe they are simple, but still they give an idea, and you are happy to test and help check in your own countries. Yes, sorry.
Taking some questions from the floor, yes?
Hello, my name is Mara Oprah. I'm also from ICP and participating in the ENPOR project. I just wanted to let the audience know that if you have more questions or are curious to explore the energy poverty dashboard or the split incentives tool, there are several posters and resources on the left, so you can scan the QR code and interact with them directly, or of course ask us. So looking forward to your questions.
Thanks very much. Louise Sunderland from the Regulatory Assistance Project. The points about the need for a national energy poverty definition and the data, Vlasas, that you were making are absolutely taken and really important. But of course, kind of going through, for countries that don't yet have that, going through those stages, that can mean delay. And we're kind of not in a place now where we can afford delay, you know, to getting to the energy efficiency and other supports to households. So I wondered if you could just say some words on some of the really practical ways that programme designers or member states can start setting eligibility criteria, targeting households, perhaps not yet perfect, but based on the things that we already have. I'm from a country where we're now in our 4th definition of energy poverty, but it actually hasn't changed the eligibility criteria hugely through those 4 different definitions. So I'm really keen to get to those practical.
Good one. So indeed, you're right. The definition is the issue, as we said, and the problem is that also that we see it in the revision of the NECPs, in the draft NECPs that are coming up, and from those who are reading and checking them, still we have issues on the energy poverty, and it's not yet clear, even now, from the member states what they are going to do. I think the ring fence of the Article 8 of the new Energy Efficiency Directive is a good start, as we said, and if we are serious about it, it's not so difficult for member states to start making at least a calculation based on the 3 indicators that the Commission provides, if they don't have their own national one. Now, in terms of the eligibility criteria of the programs, I think that what we should be checking carefully is that when we speak about obligation, somehow is the easy now part. Maybe it seems the most difficult instrument, but at least it has a mandate and a clear guidance on how to include energy poverty for that. You must have the average of the 3 indicators running across the last, I don't remember now the number of years, and then you calculate how much of the savings should be let's say, should be carried out within the energy poor groups in the various sectors. So that somehow, it's an easier approach. The most difficult ones, which is when we go to grants and when we go to other types of measures and subsidies. So for the subsidies, what we saw is that in the countries where the subsidy rates were not high enough to cover the renovation of, I'm not speaking about deep renovation, even the soft renovations. We didn't have a lot of investments taking place among the places where it was being rented for energy poor groups. So this has to change. And also some exercises we see around is that And this we have to check, of course, in all countries. But somehow, when you speak about low-income groups, it makes more sense to give higher subsidy rates when it comes to investments on a low-income group and leave tax rebates for higher income groups. It seems to work out. We checked it in a couple of countries, and it seems to be a logical conclusion, this. People from the middle or higher income groups, they are ready to get a higher tax rebate out of their investments, and it's best to reserve the amounts that you would spend to a higher income group to give it to a higher financing rate for the low income group. And like that, you could have a more tailored support and customized support and full support for the low income groups, at least to achieve the minimum you get. Now for the green mortgages and what we heard before, indeed, it makes sense, and we always speak about the leveraging of the private finance, etc., etc. Still, if you make calculations, you see that even with a green mortgage and the low interest rate, still it's an important amount to pay for a low income group. If it falls on the first income category, and we doubt if that could work out on its own. We need some state support behind it, okay, even to cover this small 5-10% financing gap. And for that, we have a lot of programs running, and from municipalities, like in the Netherlands there are ideas, or other countries, of course. We have programs from social support schemes that could somehow complement, even from the operational programs of the regions. The operational programs of the regions, we made the evaluation for them, and we see that practically very few regions mention even the word energy poverty. They speak about public buildings, they speak about whatever type of things of energy efficiency, but there was nothing on energy poverty. And if that could be part of the co-finance of the 5 to 10% missing actually to cover the gap, that could be okay. And we could have really a higher renovation rates even among the low-income groups. Okay, these are just some thoughts coming up from studies that we do also from the ENPOR.
Interesting point also for next revision of the structural fund, so that's a very specific aspect. So, is there any other question, or I should ask? Okay, please go ahead.
My name is Martijn Rietberger from the University of Applied Science in Utrecht. I have a question to Laura. So you are working on the renovation of the multi-apartment buildings, but I suppose that the apartments are owned by different people. How, or did you also came across the fact that maybe some owners did not want to renovate their apartment while others would like to do? Maybe they have the possibility to pay it, but they don't want to do. Yeah, how are you going to solve these kind of problems in larger apartment buildings?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. This is actually a very common scenario in multifamily apartment building. So you have building consisting of, let's say, 30 flats, and you go from door to door, and behind each door there are different people with different social backgrounds, with different levels of income, different needs, different opinions, different values, ways of lives. And of course, there are people who are against the renovation or who do not see the meaning, the importance of renovation. And that is exactly why the community engagement and empowerment is important. So I don't know if you know, but in such a building there must be more than 50% of homeowners agreeing on the renovation or agreeing on any energy efficient measures. So what we try to do with COMACT is to facilitate the homeowners, create space for them to come together, to talk and to agree and to find appropriate solutions. Yeah, also through the establishment of the resource centers, which can provide them guidance, or which can be included in kind of awareness raising around the importance of renovations.
But if I'm, please. No.
Sorry, just to add to that, I think it's important as well, the issue of trust. I think both in terms of the information provided can be distrusted depending on who's giving it, and I think the importance of dialogue at the early stages is vital. I mean, for some of the people that we engage with in energy measures, again, if you start talking about energy poverty, they switch off straight away. No, I'm not energy poor. I don't need to, you know. And but then you're going to go, is your home comfortable? And then you get all of these, you know, no, the windows broken here or whatever. And so they give a list then of reasons that by definition they're in energy poverty. But you know, speaking in that language can turn people off engaging as well. So I think while it's good at the policy level to talk about energy poverty and all of that, I think at the local level or at the household level, the language does need to be modified a lot of the time as well in terms of how you approach. And that again is about relationships and building trust and communicating and picking the right people to communicate, because you can lose people very quickly as well. So just to add to that.
Yeah, that's also very true in our sector, because the trust, it's crucial. So when we see, I mean, we are dealing with homeowners, co-owners, and also small landlord, but we see that the issue of trust is really the key one. If someone like an association that represents them comes to them and tell them you have to do that, is something else that if it's a company X and it's also going back to what Sean Kelly was saying about one-stop shop. This one-stop shop have to be properly set, because there are lots of one-stop shop out there that pretend to be some kind of one-stop shop, but obviously don't provide all the technical solution and are sometimes quite, let's say, commercially guided type of activities, and we have to be very careful now when we massify this one-stop shop that we do it right. So that's a very good point.
To add up to this discussion is indeed the important thing is not to avoid actually stigmatization, because that's a key issue. It's a different level to speak from a policy perspective, like, okay, where to allocate my funds for energy poverty, and a different point is to knock the door and say to somebody, you are energy poor. Nobody wants to accept it, and it's difficult even to understand it. The thing that works, and we saw it in the information type of policies and these advisory policies that we used, was when you involve the consumer organizations, so the other side, not necessarily tenant organizations, but consumer organizations which have a broader perspective, and they can easier access the low-income groups as tenants in our case, and discuss with them and showcase what is the problems and all that. Then the other thing is that other types of NGOs, or even we had countries where it was Red Cross, for example, working with the lowest income groups on that, and it works because there is a better trust to represent them. Municipalities are in the middle of this debate because they have the access to the citizen, you know, through the sending of letters up to everything, and they can inform of the current. And also good examples, if I can share, was in several countries, which I think you can see later on today, is on that we had energy coaches, we had people who were trained to do this type of job and knock the door, door to door, and go to the low income, go to the tenant and explain, you know, like in a very simple technical way, this is a window, it needs these things. So this thing helps a lot because people get a better feeling of understanding, and that there is a trust being generated that something can happen with this, with the renovation, with a simple renovation. I would say though that the issue of trust is not only among the two parties here in our case. In the studies and you know, these things that we carried out, we see that in most countries the trust is missing from both landlords and tenants towards the governmental policies. This is even worse because we see policies coming up, we see like new information and new announcements, we have new energy grants, new energy renovation grants, whatever, and you know that practically very few people benefit out of it, and even the landlord is, you know, always trying to see, okay, what's the best solution for me? The tenant does not see any real possibility out of it, and then it comes to a point where we have a bottleneck for no reason. This could be better designed and gain more trust. That's why we believe that in all this bottom-up debate, it helps a lot, and you can really co-shape and make everybody participant, let's say, to the new or the updates of the existing policies.
Very important point. I completely agree. Also stigmatization, because if you are homeowners, in French we use the word passoire énergétique, and people, homeowners or even people, property owners, they don't like that because they say my house is not a energy colander. I live there, it's a proper house, so why do you tell me this? And then the discussion is closed and you cannot continue. So I think it's very important to use the right term and to go directly to these tenants, to these homeowners, to these co-owners. And my last question, because we need to finish, and I don't know if there's another question from the floor, but one thing I would like to ask you, because your projects are coming to an end. Obviously, we see in all three sectors that you are, all of the three projects you have been working on and all the sector you are working on, you need a lot of manpower. in order to do that, because the direct contact, the social contact, as you say, the going and knock at the door and setting one-stop shop or running one-stop shop require a lot of manpower. So how do you see the future? What would be the need for you to continue your action? Or how can we do that? It's a bit related to the question that Eduardo was asking earlier, how to move from experience to something that is massified and can run on its own.
I might just, I suppose, yeah, it is a difficult question. I think one of the things that, from our experience, and when we were talking to homeowners, or not homeowners, but energy poor householders, who include everybody, it was the different life stages that people experience. Like, say, for example, if they're in their 40s and 50s and they're quite successful in their career or something, their energy poverty isn't a factor. But once they retire, it can become a factor. So it's the idea of, I think, where policy should reflect the lived experiences as well and the life stages of citizens. So, for example, once you become retired, that should automatically tick a box for supports as well to make sure that they don't fall into energy poverty, because a lot of the time they may have built houses back in the 70s, 60s, 70s, have older houses that aren't energy efficient. So it's how to, design policy to kind of meet them as well, so that once they become retired, for example, that would be a kind of a flag then to this set of supports will come in then. So maybe that's.
Want to add something, or shall we conclude for this morning?
Maybe on that, yes, indeed, it works out. Also, we should have to wait a bit what the outcomes of the new implementation, let's say, phase of the EED and the transposition will be for the member states, because this will determine a lot. I strongly believe that countries want to see successes, and countries want to see things that are working. So from all these projects, what comes out is normally outputs and policies or measures or whatever that do work, and they have had an effect. So from the point that we promote it cleverly to the member states, they would definitely like to make use of it, because they see the costs, they can see really that something is working. That's my idea, and I think that's the whole thing of SINEA that, coming back to SINEA, that is important that all these projects should go back to the member states now with the transposition period, and so, look, we've got like 50 good practices, make use of them, don't start from zero.
Lara, you want to conclude on that?
I would just comment that we are dedicated to continue our work, starting new projects and building up on the work that we have already done, including the COMACT project. For us, now the next step would be the COMACtivate project, which is the continuation of the COMACT, where we basically want to build up on the results from the COMACT project. So I think that the continuity is very, very important, and we are really happy that we got this opportunity to build on the results of the COMACT project and to move further the results of the COMACT.
Thank you. So thank you, the three of you. I think there will be the possibility to ask more questions after the coffee break anyway. We have another session after. I will leave it to Anna from FEANTSA. We'll look at something more specific and even more practical, something works in practice, is how to tackle energy poverty, thanks also to the social rental agency. So we have a very short coffee break, so please be back. Let me check what time okay, in 15 minutes, so that we can start the next session. So thank you, all of you. Thanks for this very interesting discussion.
was just like, Louise, may I just say that this is too cold for me?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it's difficult to answer your question about cost. It's difficult to separate just the bit that was the extra insulation. Yes, that's the bit that insulation cost. But then there's this bit on how hard renovation.
Yes, I will be moderating. Yes, I will be very strict. Yeah. No, I gave this five minutes time because I know that it will be a bit longer, so also to have space for questions. But if you speak 6 minutes, nothing will happen, so it's okay. Yeah, and there will be a second round. So first I will ask about your current activities and energy renovations, energy poverty alleviation, so basically to present your project and renovations. And in the second round I will ask questions more related to policy needs and how things can be improved to provide more renovations.
Because the project is only directly connected to
Okay, good.
Hello, I'm Kent. I'm from Belgium, from Logement pour Tous, which is a company we're renting to low people with low revenues in Brussels. So not far from me, around here, everywhere. So it's Agence Immobilière Sociale. I don't know how you say it in English. I should think about it. Where do you come from?
I come from.
Yeah. I saw your presentation. You sent the presentation. But I don't know if it's a public company or.
No, it's a municipality.
It's a municipality who does it.
It's a project. So
okay.
The municipality was doing the project, but
okay.
In coalition.
Okay. But it's more or less the same. But we are an association, but we are funded by the region. So it's Brussels. It's a little bit specific because it's a city, but it's also a region. So we receive money from the region to pay us, and then we take from the owner between 9 and 30 years the building, and we rent it to people with low income, and we ensure that they will get every month the rent. And if there is something wrong with the tenant, we will pay the damage of the tenants.
So you take the whole buildings or just
No. The idea is, I would say, in Belgium we have two ways. You have the social housing, which is belonging to the state or to the region or to a public, I would say. And then this is private. We are financing through the region, but this is private. And the idea was not to put everybody together. So when you see the card, we have some apartment. A lot of the time we prefer to have a small building. So a house with 3 apartments, you know, a family house splits in 3. So the people are spread everywhere, and you don't have ghetto of people living together. So that was the idea, one of the idea. The other idea, and that's another company, but very linked to us. It's modern. In fact, they exist before us. They are renovating for the people. So what they do, they say, okay, you have a building here. It's quite old. You don't have the time. You don't have the money to do it. We do it for you. We will renovate it. There is nobody inside, or it's, you know, it needs to be renovated. They will renovate it, and then they will finance it, and they will put it down for 30 years with us to get back their money. So we have 2 different companies, one doing the renovation, and one making the... It's Renov Assistance. I put it there also. And it's only volunteers, so you don't have friction costs. It's all people who, I'm sure they will go to even, but you know, architects and entrepreneurs who are not retired, and so they do that nearly full time, half time. I would say it's their passion. So it's interesting. So the 2 together work well, but it's not only from them. Sometimes we receive people who are just fuck off renting to people and so on, and they put it, and the apartment, it's okay. Okay, but they always take, not always, but a lot of the time they take the house. And not only from private people, individuals, but also from public. You know, you have some municipalities, but Brussels is divided in 19 municipalities, I would say, and they don't have the time. It's quite hard with the European restriction. They have to ask different, you know, people offer and so on. So they say, we don't have the time, we give you also for 30 years. And so that's really, I would say, 1/3 of what they receive coming from the public, which is strange, but it's not bad, because sometimes also they don't have the competence, so they do it. And sometimes they receive the money from foundation, and they have a foundation and they buy it. So I would say, really, we have all the... It's very interesting, very, very interesting. The model is very interesting, but I'm not... I know them because we are very close. We live together. They come. They have a small, office with us because we are 20. They are 10, but they're working from home. They are on the house to follow the works and so on. So we see them once a week and follow them. And then they go for the priming from the state for the renovation, but I will speak about it. But it's more and more difficult because these primings are going down. So they have to extend. The price of the material is going up. So we speak about the energy price, which is going down. That's a good news. But the construction price is going up. So that's a bad news. So if you want to see... the 2 things, it's difficult to come now with because now they come, and when they do the calculation, it needs 50 years or 60 years. So for private individuals, okay, I don't know, you are 60, 50, if you have to block it for 50 years, it's not for you, it's all for your children already. You see, so it's quite difficult to lock something for more than 30 years. They say more than 30 years, it doesn't have sense. And then also after 30 years, you have to re-renovate it because 30 years is quite a lot. So now it's quite, well, it's not difficult, but it's hard. And then they have also the financing. They never have been to the bank. They have some friends who lend them the money for a long time at 2%. What? So it's really a community of people very sensible to the poverty and so on, and with experts in renovation. You should meet them. It's really okay. Yeah, we can discuss. Yeah, I will take also a small bottle.
Mire van szükség, úgyhogy ez a 2 kör lesz. Jó. Nem biztosítva. Igen, jó. Great. And So, good morning, everyone. I hope you enjoyed your coffee break and you are fresh and ready for the next panel discussion, where we are going to talk about the role of social rental agencies in the renovation of the private building stock and in tackling energy poverty among vulnerable tenants. The social rental agency model is a non-profit model based on the role of an agency that gathers vacant privately owned apartments or buildings and rent them out at an affordable price, so lower than the market price, mostly for different vulnerable groups. In many cases, not mainly for the most vulnerable ones, but for example, lower income public workers as well. And the benefit of this model is that it provides both guarantees for the homeowners in terms of taking care of the apartment, securing a smooth flow of the income from the rent, and they also provide benefits for the tenants because they can guarantee lower rent compared to the market prices. And why we have been organizing this panel is because social rental agencies often also do a lot of renovation work, and they can be a very important actor in renovating vacant apartments and bringing them back to life, basically, and also to tackle energy poverty of tenants, because if the building is renovated well, then most of the housing, like the problems within the apartment can be tackled, such as humidity, but also energy efficiency can be largely improved. So I invited to this panel actors that are working on social rental agencies in social rental agencies or developing new social rental agency models across Europe. We have Adél from Hungary. She works for the From Streets to Homes Association, which is an association that is working with the Housing First principle to provide housing for homeless people, mostly renovating vacant municipal apartments, but they also manage a social rental agency since 2015. We have Mark Bakkens from Brussels. He works for the social rental agency that is working in Brussels, and they manage multiple apartments, a few hundred apartments already, and they are very engaged in energy efficient renovations. We have Albert from Spain. He's an associate professor at the Autonomous University of Barcelona, but he also works as housing as the head of the housing department at one of the municipalities of Barcelona. And finally, we have Olga from Poland, and she's an advocacy specialist at Habitat for Humanity Poland, and she's much involved in monitoring and improving the work of social rental agencies across the entire country. And Habitat for Humanity Poland was a leading actor in developing the social rental agency and settling it in an Eastern European country. So I would first give the floor to Adil, and I will ask in the first round from the speakers to present their organization shortly and explain what they are doing in the field of renovating vacant apartments and to which extent they can tackle the issue of inefficient homes.
Yeah, thanks. So from Streets to Homes, we work with the housing first principle, which means that we try to run model programs that show that with social housing we can tackle homelessness. So we have 3 housing programs. The first housing program was the From House to Homes program, where we renovate municipality-owned flats, and then we started our social housing agency, which is the social rental agency, I guess. Yeah. So we started that in 2015, and the third program is the rental subsidy program, which we provide support for refugees from Ukraine. We have around 30 flats in our municipality-based program, and we have 35 apartments in our social housing agency. And yeah, so it is hard for us to be the most energy efficient because we don't have any governmental or national funding. But our base program that we renovate old and vacant and mostly unlivable apartments, we try to be as cost and energy efficient as possible. So we basically do the renovations by ourselves and the volunteers, and then the tenants can rent out these apartments for below market prices. And we try to, when we renovate our homes, we try to be very energy efficient by building insulation, by building the suspended ceilings to make the flats smaller, and then it won't be needed to heat up very much. And we also try to work with our technical team who are experienced in sustainability to use materials that are natural materials. So we try to when we renovate an apartment, we try to use apartments that do not use gas, because the gas prices went up in Hungary in the last few years. And so when this was mainly about our municipal apartments, and in our social housing apartments, we mostly accept homes from people who live abroad and not in Hungary, but their apartments are vacant, and mainly they are apartments that are in a better condition than the municipality-owned flats. But also when we accept these homes, we make smaller renovations, but it's hard for us to make these bigger renovations, because we don't have we have these flats for a minimum of 3 years with us, but after that it's not sure that we are going to have them also after that. So I think it's a smaller problem that we face. So I think in the next year we are going to focus on the energy efficiency in our homes, because because it is hard for our tenants to pay their bills. But we are trying to help them by fundraising campaigns, and we also, when they need help paying their bills, we offer them loans, and but we also try to help them with like community social work, which is a very important thing with us, and we give them like this concept that how they are going to plan their expenses in each month, and we try to help them with our social workers. I think maybe this is what we do now. And we will.
Thank you. It was super interesting, and it also goes back what we've heard before, that it's not only the physical interventions that are important in terms of energy poverty alleviation, energy efficiency measures, but also the work with the social workers in order to manage and prevent maybe indebtedness and manage the bills. So I will give now the floor to Mark to present the Logement pour tous Association, which manage 800 housing units in Brussels and also is engaged in the Renov Assistance program to renovate their stocks.
Okay. I don't know if you have the presentation or not.
Yes.
If you can do it, it's easier for me. You hear me? Yeah. So we are renting to low-income people. We are working with 20 associations, homeless also, like you, like your association. So we are not doing the assistance of the people by themselves for refugees, for young people. We have nearly 1,000 accommodation, which is quite specialist, that is not in big building. It's really the idea was to spread the people everywhere, to have a good social contact and not to have ghetto. So you can see on the map where we have in Brussels some building. It's nearly everywhere, not everywhere, because there's some rich part where it's more difficult to get one, but it's everywhere. We are in Brussels because Belgium is divided in 3 regions, so we are not, and we are funded by the region. Globally, we have I would say 1/4 with new accommodation and 3/4 old buildings. New are quite well also because some people are going. We are existing since 20 years, so at the time people cannot go 3 floors with the stair and so on. So it's always good to have the diversity. I would say not diversity, human diversity, but also the diversity of type of accommodation. The PB, I don't know in English, it's the energy level. 3/4, it's or better, so it's not too bad. I think it's better than the average of the building in Brussels, so it's quite good. If you can put the second slide. Sorry. Okay, sorry, I'm not used to that.
You have to look this direction.
What? Yeah, I try. Yeah, if to look the other direction.
Perhaps this one.
Yeah. Okay. It's better. Oh, it's quite small, but I will try to explain. So, in fact, we have 3 associations. One foundation where they are buying some when they receive some money from other foundation or other thing. A second association with mainly working with renovation. So they contact people, individuals or municipalities who doesn't have the money or the time to renovate, and they say, okay, we will finance it, we will renovate it, but we will keep it until we can repay our loans. These loans are individual, so they have no loans to the bank. They have some friends where they receive the loan, and so they are financing that, and they are looking after the renovation. It's only volunteer, so there is no friction cost there. All the money is going in the renovation. They are existing since a little bit to 25 years, and they renovate 150 accommodation. So it's quite interesting it's perhaps more interesting than what I'm doing every day. Then they put it for rent with us for between 25 years and 30 years, or 35 years. But they have the problem now because they receive a part of subsidies, but I will speak about it after. The rest, we have some owner who come to us, mainly between 9 and 30 years, directly to us, We can do some small renovation, but when it's big renovation, we don't have, the power is not a cup of tea, I would say. Next one, I try. That's just an example of what they are doing. So it's really huge renovation. It's not only energy renovation, but they are splitting a lot of the time family house in 2, 3, 4 apartments. That's what they are doing. You have some figure also, but I can't read it there. I don't have good eyes. But just to give an example of one renovation, the cost was 600,000 euro, and they receive about 80,000 euro of subsidies from the state, from the region, for the renovation for energy purpose. And then they finance the rest. And they did there three apartments, 1 studio, and 2 apartments, 2 rooms. If you look to the next one, that's the percentage of subsidy they're receiving. You see that the trend is not going up, it's going down, and even more now because there is a new system in Brussels, and in fact it will go down about 5% down. Which make the exercise a lot more difficult because you have also the cost of the renovation, the material cost, and I would say the cost of the people doing the renovation, which is going higher, and the subsidies which is going down, which make that when they did the calculation, they don't come to 30 years, but to 50 years or 60 years, which is not possible for the owner to let no revenues during 50 years. And even in terms of age, if I have to give a house for 50 years, I'm dead. And so you have the problem with the children. The problem, I would say, there is succession problem and so on. So it's a lot more difficult. From some municipalities, it's also a lot more difficult to look at 50 years. So they have some contract with municipalities on 30 years, but more than 30 years is quite difficult. So there are some challenge, I would say, positively. Reducing our resource consumption, what are we doing? I think there are 2 things. That's at Logement pour Tous. There is also the behavior of tenants. So if I came here with that, it's just to say that you can put 5 degrees less the temperature here and we'll still be happy. And we still have tenants where they put the temperature at 21 degrees, and you know it's not a curve like this, it's a curve like this. So we are taking time to explain it, and it's also important because, and perhaps Europe should put 10% of the budget just for education and the tenants' habits, or habits I will say also, because that's also important. Even if it's perhaps not as good for the economy, for the industry, but still it makes sense. So we are helping the people with the aids, because there are some aids for the people to receive money, for example, during the COVID, but also with the energy crisis, but they don't know how to do it. So we are helping them to get the premium from the region because it's more numeric, so it's more and more difficult. And we are checking the consumption to help them also. We have a project, so we have installed photovoltaic in about 1/3 of our building, representing more or less a power of 30% of the consumption of electricity. So we did it on all the building where it was possible and where the owner was agreed to do it. The problem is that even with that, we propose to do an energy community with all our tenants, not only the people who have the chance to get some panels, but it's not so easy. So that's what we are doing now. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Very interesting, and also very interesting to hear the different context and the support schemes that are existing in one country and maybe not that much in other countries. But it's a very impressive work and also very complex in terms of tackling from different entry points the issue of energy poverty. Sorry for the microphone. And now I give the floor to Albert, so he can present the project in which he's largely involved. It's titled Yes, We Rent, and they are building an innovative social rental agency model based on collaborative housing and public communitarian collaboration. So we are very excited to hear what you are doing in Barcelona.
Well, lovely.
Thanks, Anna, for the introduction and for the invitation. Yeah, now it's ready. Yeah, as I said, thanks for the invitation and for the presentation. As Anna explained, my challenge today is to give you an overview about this project that is called Yes, We Ran. It has this funny name. It's a project that is led by the municipality of Mataró. This is a charming municipality that is 30 kilometers north from Barcelona, in alliance with different partners, including academia and NGOs. The program and the project is supported by the Urban Innovative Actions Fund. This is part of the RDF. It was part of the RDF. Now it has another name, and this program has the aim to support these projects that they are too risky or too innovative to be supported by the mainstream programs of the EU and national programs. Our objective or the aim of the project was to tackle this well-known paradoxical situation in which, as you all know, on the one hand we have strong difficulties of most of the people to access to the market, and particularly to the rental market, but at the same time we still have a large stock of empty houses in our cities, or at least in our city. But there was something more. There was this idea that the way that the market was working and the way that the market was functioning was not, let's say, satisfying, was not good for neither of the parts. From the point of view of the tenant, they had to accept these conditions because of this great imbalance, this clear imbalance of powers with the owners, and from the perspective of the owners, to rent their flats become a kind of a risky sport in which, if they are lucky, the only thing that they will get is the rent every month, no? But if they are unlucky, a lot of bad things can happen. So we did believe that this social rental agency was the model to be developed. But as far as Mataró is a city with a very strong cooperative tradition, we wanted to explore this potential that exists in the collaborative and cooperative housing initiative to activate this empty housing and to generate affordable housing for all. So the idea was not only then to renovate flats, but let me say it like that, it's like the vision of the project and the ambition of the project. The idea was to transform the market. To transform the market in a way that now, as you all know, it works mainly, at least in Spain, in a one-to-one basis relation, in which in a situation in which every tenant relates and negotiates individually with every landlord. And we were imagining a situation in which, well, it's not very beautiful, this one. We wanted to change the market, and we were imagining a situation in which there exists an equation in the market, an equation created and managed by the tenants themselves in a cooperative basis that can help or can enable the possibility to consume housing together and collectively, to rent together, let's say like a professional tenant, and what is more important, to be able to auto-generate or to self-generate their own affordable housing. At the end, we are talking about something like a social rental agency, but developed for the community, developed in the community, developed by the tenants themselves, of course in alliance with the municipality. Why? Well, to be able to give all this added value that Anna was explaining in the introduction, but it's also a way to rebalance this balance of power that I was commenting. It's about offering security, it's about giving added value, helping in renovation. It's about solving this split incentive that we were talking before, because it's if the cooperative themselves is taking care of the renovation and it's thinking and giving advice and thinking about the tenant at the end is the one who is going to pay the bills, that of course could help. But a lot of other things, they can give access to cooperative financing. They can give access to transportation, cooperative energies, and many other things. So as far as this was a pilot project, how did we do it? What we did is that the municipality was situated here in between of the owners and the tenants, and what we did is that we launched a campaign with incentives for owners to bring their flats to the project. It happened on February 2020, and as you know, just 1 month after, we were all locked down at home, and nobody was able to look at these wonderful buses that were going around the city with our project and so on. But anyway, the incentives were there. They were including, of course, subsidies for renovation and the possibility to renovate the flat by the municipality themselves, and this was something that we did in the most of the cases. This was including the obligation to allocate an important part of the budget to energy measures for sure. And yeah, at the end of let me stick to my notes, otherwise I will, even though the pandemic and so on, 60 owners, they brought their flats to the project. We were able to renovate them, to improve them from different point of view, of course also from the energetic point of view. But the difficult part of the project was not that. The innovative part was to generate and to create this new agent in the rental housing market. That was this cooperative. So the second strand of the project, the second work package, was to work with the community, to work with civil society, looking for those people interested in generating this new cooperative that will receive all these projects, all these flats that were already in the project, and they will test whether it had some sense or not to consume collectively and to manage collectively these flats. Then is when the miracle happened, the real miracle of the project. There were 10 people that they trust in the idea. They went to the legal advisor and they created Block Cooperative, which is the cooperative that now is existing, and it's managing these 60 flats, and they have around 120 members and a long waiting list. And if it's okay for you, I will stop here, and perhaps in the second round I will comment. Let me just say that if you want more information, we have these websites that you can access. You will see that the first one is in this funny Southern European language that is called Catalan. But don't worry, the videos are subtitled in English, and they have so yeah, there's a lot, and there are papers and so on that I will be happy if you can check. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a very interesting model of how to bring the cooperative aspect into the social rental agency model, and how to empower tenants, and also to move forward the renovations and most importantly, bringing back vacant apartments to a very difficult market where rents are very high and the demand is really large. Last but not least, I will give the floor to So, sorry again for the microphone. And I would like to ask you to share your experience regarding, maybe to introduce shortly the context of social rental agencies in Poland, and then to explain what they are doing in the field of renovations.
Hello, everyone. In Habitat for Humanity Poland, we decided to get interested into social rental agencies, mostly due to the fact that we have a huge housing crisis in Poland and a huge scarcity of apartments. Additionally, it is said that more than 12% of the current housing stock in Poland is unoccupied. So we thought it would be a great option to combine the vacant housing units with social rental agencies. And since 2017, we started running a social rental program in Warsaw to try to use our organization as some kind of a test bed to test these solutions in Poland. At this moment, we are running the social rental program in Warsaw and Gliwice. This is a town in the Silesia region. And now we have expanded it up to 179 units. So it's kind of a growing program. So that's for us to ensure energy efficiency within this program. We try to get funding from different EU programs, different donors, also to engage volunteers, for example, in renovating the housing stock that comes mainly from private owners, as well as some of the apartment comes from the municipalities as well. We try to, as far as is possible, to change heating systems, because very often we see that those housing units are have coal furnaces. So this is a very important issue for us. We also try to insulate the apartments, change doors and windows. Because very often we find that the windows are single glaze, or they have not been open for a couple of decades. Additionally, we provide at this moment rent subsidies for Ukrainian refugees within these programs, partially covering the cost for about 80% of our beneficiaries, and fully covering all the expenses, including the heating, the energy bills, for 20% of our beneficiaries. So we see that this is a very huge problem, especially for the refugees who came to Poland after the war in Ukraine began, because they cannot afford living in our country, and we try to help them as much as possible. And additionally to this program, we also launched a social rental agency in Poland recently, in Dąbrowa Górnicza, where we have right now 30 apartments. Most of them are coming from the public housing stock, but they were vacant spaces for many years. Additionally, we are also expanding into private units. And there we renovated 23 apartments recently and engaged also international volunteers into the renovations. So we consider it also part of the education about energy efficiency, to try to involve as many people as possible in these solutions, so that the topic of energy efficiency becomes more known in our country. Additionally, in the Polish legal system, the social rental agencies have been introduced just 2 years ago, thanks to our activity on this topic. And thanks to this, the SRAs can offer additional rent subsidies for the tenants, as well as housing allowances. And the Polish Development Bank also offers additional subsidies for those renting apartments from the social rental agencies. And for us to make sure that our tenants are also aware about the energy crisis and the costs of staying warm in their homes, we also transfer the electricity and gas contracts to them, so that they can monitor on an ongoing basis how much they use. And if they use too much, they also can change their habits so that they use less and they pay less eventually for what they use. And the last program that we are running right now is the supportment of local governments throughout Poland in launching social rental agencies. We go around the whole country and advise and support municipalities in creating new social rental agencies, and we help them prepare all the needed documents, but as well as we want them to start the new SRAs in a very energy efficient way, we also help them renovate the empty spaces that they have. In this program, we are now renovating 20 apartments in Będzin, Tarnów and Świebodzin, thanks to the help of UNHCR. And for us it is very important, because one such renovation of a vacant unit in Poland costs about 25,000 euro, and for us it would be impossible to be able to do it without donors.
Thank you very much. We've heard I think we've heard really inspiring projects and initiatives. And for me, it's very interesting to see that based on the same idea of social rental agencies, in different countries, in different setups, they work with different history, and also maybe in Brussels they are existing already since 20 or even more years. In Central and Eastern Europe, the initiatives has a history of 5-7 years. In some countries they managed to include it even into the legal framework, while in other countries it's not yet established. So after presenting your activities, I would like to ask you to provide a few, maybe a wish list, or to highlight key obstacles that you need to overcome in order to accelerate your activity in renovation, or simply just to guarantee that your future tenants can move into not only beautifully renovated apartments, but also highly energy efficient apartments, which can, I think, in the future will be a very important very important necessity to guarantee affordable rents. And it's not only important for the tenants, but it's also important for the owner, because if energy costs are stable and low, then the rent inflow is also more secure, because less affordability issues will occur. So I will give the floor to Adel to explain a bit what is missing, or what would help in the Hungarian policy context.
Yeah, so in Hungary there is no like national policies for housing, so it's a problem that the government does not take care of. There is a lack of social housing, and yeah, I think that is needed, that the other municipalities are starting like their own rental agencies, because in Budapest I think there are like 100,000 housing units that are owned by the municipality and are vacant because of their condition, and also I think it is important that there are going to be policies in Hungary that support renovations that are energy efficient, because right now the government only supports people from the upper class, because they have to have money already and own property, and it is also linked to like biopolitics, that you have to have children to get support from the government, and I think it's like it has to change. So I think in our work we also need more funding to start new projects, but we also think that we work as like a model to like policymakers, to see that we run like a social housing program which works, which has people to move into houses, and that social housing can end homelessness. But in order to do that, we need to have more funds, and it is essential for the government to provide us more funding options, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. Mark, you highlighted that costs are increasing, and while in Belgium there are support schemes, but they tend to decrease.
They tend to decrease, and the region has no money anymore, also. So they have a fund, and the fund is off. So from time to time we see some information from the journalists saying there is no fund anymore. So that's not a very good news for us. And previously in the system we have a pre-financing. So we put the file, and they pre-finance 90%, and then after we have to come with all the invoice and so on, and the refund. Now it's afterwards. So you have a real problem of will I receive the money? So that's really, for the time being in Brussels, that's a question which is quite complicated for owners and for our agencies, but that's a very local problem. So I will not go local problem. No, I think that you spoke about it. We speak a vacant building. We should have some laws, quite strict laws, where something is vacant, we can take it. It can be public sometimes because there are quite of public house or buildings which are not used for decades sometimes. The second thing is when we look to what is affordable, it's about 30% of premium of subsidies to be able to come to something like 30 years, 25 years of renovation. So less than that with our end, which are lower than the market, more or less 25%, 30% lower than the market, we cannot cope with that. I spoke about education. I think also that's a point important. And our partners, so Adele, they should be, because for very, I would say, homeless people and so on, we cannot afford to follow them very closely to solve all their problems, because like refugees also, they come to a country, it's not a problem. Housing is the first step, but to continue the further step. And then the community, you spoke about community of owner. I think that legal setup should be set to put community. It can be for energy, it can be for innovation, it can be for owner, but really the community, it's important. And I didn't spoke about Fairground or further, but I'm also in other, I would say, association where we try to put community land trust and so on. But the community in general should be put in front, and we should keep a little bit of money for the community also.
Thank you. What about Barcelona? What would you need to establish better your initiative and to guarantee that it can exist for a longer term and maybe expand as well?
Well, a lot of things actually. No, it's a pilot project, so the aim of the project was to test it, and one of the most important things is that to talk about our experience in forums like that is something that needs to be done, because at the end I do think that this model has some it's not the solution to the housing problem, but I think it do have some interesting perspective that can help to other people, like to develop the idea, to find new ways to go further. What do we need? We could say, of course, access to funding and no one, but it's not perhaps the main need, because the business model that we have developed and so on, it proves that from a certain level of from a certain volume of flats managed, the model can be self-sustainable or even generate resources. So access to funding, of course, it helps to speed up all the process and so on, but it's not like the main thing. For me, the main need is what I call it recognition. So it means recognition at the local level. Recognition at the local level that these kind of initiatives, they need a change in our mindset as local administration, as public administration, because it needs, in a way, to trust in these horizontal relations. It needs to trust in these partnerships, not as a vertical idea that, okay, I'm giving subsidies or grants to these people that they are doing something that is helping us to avoid problems. It's not like that. It's like we need recognition in the sense of recognizing that these initiatives, they can be part of our housing policy, accepting that even if we are a municipality and we are local administration and we are very powerful and can do whatever, the housing problem is beyond our capacities and beyond our competences. So we need to invent this new alliance, and of course citizenship tenants, they can be part of it. It means that I do believe that this cooperative can work themselves alone, but they have sense if they are integrated in the housing policy, at least in our municipality. It means that if we are offering incentives to owners to activate their flats or to renew their flats, we could understand that managing the flats by the cooperative or giving the flat to the cooperative is the same like offering to the municipality, because at the end we are treating the same people and it's the same objective. I would also like to highlight this idea about the regulatory framework. It could help a lot. This recognition at the local level is important, but it could help a lot to have a framework that recognize and give like a field for this initiative. We had problems with the VAT, with taxes. At least in Spain, like the rental regulation is very inflexible and very strict, and you cannot access to subsidies for the rent because it's a strange kind of rent that we are managing. So I think this legal could be interesting to have in mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then finally, regarding Poland, you have quite an established regulatory framework. As in a few years you managed to integrate it into the legal system. You also receive funds from donors and from public funding as well. I would be interested a bit on whether, when you are upgrading the heating system, if you are relying on the national funding from the Cleaner program, and still, I guess you would need some other initiatives to develop or expand your work, and if you could explain on that.
Of course. Well, when we go to and talk to the local municipalities about social rental agencies, the first thing they ask us is how much money do we have, and how often can we help them with getting much more money for the launch of the social rental agencies. But from our perspective, it's not the biggest issue in Poland, even though the money is very helpful in renovating those empty spaces. For us, it's the case of technical support for small and medium-sized municipalities, because very often when we talk about social rental agencies or introducing new housing innovations in Poland, we usually talk about the biggest cities, but the fact is that most of the people in Poland live in small, medium-sized cities or in rural areas. And those who work within those municipalities very often do not know anything about what happens at the European level. They don't have time to look for housing innovations or even track new grant opportunities and additional financing that is already on the table. And from our perspective, helping them and launching the social rental agencies would be a very important issue that we think is the most important from our perspective. Additionally to this, we think that mapping vacant properties is also an issue in Poland, because very often we do not know why a specific place is vacant, how long have it been vacant, what is the reason. And maybe creating such a database would be very important to better understand the issue and to better design the housing policies in Poland.
Thank you very much. And now I would turn to the audience if you have any questions, generic ones or specific ones to the different contexts. Please go ahead.
Martijn Rietbergen from Utrecht University of Applied Science. I have a question to Mark. I really like your, let's say, bottom-up initiative for small-scale renovation. But I wonder what the impact is on the rents of the people. So it for sure it lowers the energy bill, but are the rents still affordable for those people?
So I would say in Brussels I am financed by the region of Brussels. What is happening is that we have some maximal rents depending on the number of sleeping room that we can pay to the owner, and we have a maximum rent we can receive from the tenants, and the difference is paid by the region. So we have a really quite good system, I would say. I have not to complain in comparison of other countries. It can be improved, so don't tell the region that I'm happy. But that's the first thing. The second thing is that when Rénov' Assistance take a building, there is nobody anymore. So we don't have a problem with the previous tenants. what they do, they renovate, and they compute how many years they need with the maximum rent, or a little bit less, because I never paid the maximum rent to the tenant, to the owner. But they will compute that with the rent. And the rent is, depending on the municipalities in Brussels, but between 25% and 40% lower than the market rent. But you are sure to receive it, and you don't have tax on the building also. So they have an advantage. So normally you have to compare everything, and it's not so easy today to compare it. If you want, I can give you the details. But so yes, it's working. It's working, but it's a limit for the time being with the cost of material and so on.
Thank you. Very important topic indeed, rent levels. We have time for the last question, and I've seen Eva that she raised her hand.
So once more, I'm complaining a little bit, but globally speaking, the region of Brussels, they have already a setup of legal structure to put some communities of energy. So you can provide the energy to your neighbor. There is a law. But for us, it's a little bit more complicated, because I'm not the owner of the building. I'm not the owner of the panel photovoltaic, because it's a third-party installation. Okay, and my people are spread around all Brussels. So you have to pay the street for the electricity for one part to the other one. So it means that when you produce in one house, if you want to give, it's theory, but it's like this, that it's compute, because every quarter they measure the electricity, which one is consuming, the other one is producing. You have to pay the street. And so at the end of the day, the benefit of the person is lower than the social tariff of the electricity in Brussels. So it's a little bit complicated, but for the time being, I cannot create a community with all my tenants, not because they are not interested, but because the cost of setting up and the legal risk of setting up is too complicated for the time being in Brussels. I don't know if I'm completely clear. And what I'm dreaming is to do, okay, let's take not only our association, but let's take, because there are 20 associations like me in Brussels with 8,000 apartments, and there is also the social housing. Let's take a big community of all the tenants, and let's split that and use globally, because how more people are consuming, how better it is in terms of using the electricity at the same time. Okay, that's the idea, but it's still, okay, we put already the panel, we are putting some small community with building, and then we try to spread like the COVID, but positively.
So thank you very much. I think we've had a very interesting, maybe not a debate, but we learned a lot about different contexts and the need of funding, the maturation of the legal context, or maybe making easier the regulations, or in other contexts maybe increasing the level of regulations to make it more adaptable for social rental agencies and to match with the new energy transition policies, and at the end to provide good level of rents and low energy costs for tenants, and improve the housing stock. Thank you very much, and I will give the floor for the next panel that will start right now.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for this very interesting discussion. Why we had this discussion today? I mean, why it was important for me to include this part in the discussion? Because my organization represent, as I say, homeowners, so individuals, but also small landlords. And what we see most of the time is that with the aging population and a large number of landlords are not the youngest. And with all these new requirements, especially in terms of energy efficiency, we see that lots of them are just simply giving up, either selling or just leaving a property vacant because they don't know how to deal with that. And that's why it's important to have such model, because of course there is a lack of housing in Europe. And we need to tackle this, these models are quite specific and we can call this a niche, but in the end I think it's also a very important one. So that's why it was very important to have this discussion before, and thank you all for your participation. I was looking at your map, Mark, and I'm quite impressed how spread your property are in Brussels. Of course, I know Brussels very well, so that's why I was interested. And I think this is exactly that, taking this case by case, apartment by apartment. It's a huge task, but it's something that needs to be done. So thank you for that. Thank you all. And I will now, we're going to move now from practical example again to policy, and we will move back to again now focus again on the private rental sector. And in ENPOR in these 3 years we had a certain number of countries involved, and in all these countries we had often discussion with what we call the REACT group. So it was a group with all the stakeholders. We look at all existing policy. We rank them according to different criteria. So existing policy that tackle energy poverty or could tackle energy poverty, but need to be improved in order to do so. And we came up with a national list. And as Lazis was mentioning this morning, this dashboard, I really invite all of you to look at that. So to look at this policy, are they being ranked according to how they can help to tackle energy poverty? So I'm very glad to have all the speakers now for this last session. They are all part of this ENPOR group, and they have all been the one looking into this national policy in the more specific ways. So we are quite many, and we have 1 hour left. So what I will ask you is, I'm not going to introduce you, so very shortly, give your name, maybe just organization, countries, and among the policy we have a look into, give me what maybe 3 of them that according to you the most relevant, or the one you would like to discuss today. So I will ask with you from the other side. So I will give the floor to Christos to start the discussion.
Thank you, Manuel. Good morning to everyone. My name is Christos Drokolias. I'm Energy Policy Analyst at CRES, Center of Renewable Energy Savings in Greece. Within the ENPOR, we had the difficult task to redesign the most significant program in Greece in order to renovate residential buildings, a program that started in 2011, Εξοικονομώ κατοικίες, Energy Saving at Home, and this program continues up to date, Εξοικονομώ 2023. So the idea is to redesign so as to target on the private rented sector. It's not an easy task because it is a huge program and the most important. And the main policy recommendations that we derived by this procedure is, yes, it is important to focus on the energy renovation, especially in the building envelope, in order to combat on a long-term and permanent basis the energy poverty. It is important to increase the awareness raising of the energy poor households, and it is important to provide technical assistance through different means, targeted campaigns, the establishment of a one-stop shop, the creation of a network, and of course, in order to create the trust between landlords and tenants, it's important to discuss any potential arrangements based on some quantitative estimates, and toward this direction we develop the tool that Vlad has described in order to quantify the benefits. And finally, the redesign of the program, giving specific financing aid to landlords. The financial aid is very close to the allocated benefit to the tenants. That from my side, I hope not to take too much time.
Perfect. Please, Martin.
Yes, my name is Martijn Rietbergen from University of Applied Science in Utrecht, the Netherlands. And we have been engaged in the ENPOR project through the so-called Energy Box program. It's primarily a information campaign and also support program for energy poor households. The Energy Box program was originally developed by a consultancy based in Utrecht, De Jonge Milieuadvies. Exists already for a couple of years, and it has been widely implemented now by several municipalities, especially in the province of Utrecht. So about 17,000 energy boxes have been handed out to households, of which about 10% are in the private rented sector. The energy box comes in different ways. First of all, people receive a real physical energy box, which contains energy-saving products like LED light, radiator foil, thermometer, energy-saving shower head, for example. Second, there's a so-called energy coach that is visiting the households to give them energy advice. Third, the energy coach drafts an energy advisory report to give advice on energy efficiency measures. And maybe in some cases there are also follow-up meetings to implement those energy-saving measures. Looking at our policy or program that we have investigated, there are a couple of recommendations to make. First of all, we've seen that there is a good engagement strategy necessary to reach out to the energy poor households. So that is very important. Second, we also see that there should be a kind of tailor-made program, tailor-made energy box program that is necessary because people also have different needs. And the last recommendation that I would like to make is that that's a bit more specific, but the energy coaches that are involved in the program also need to be properly trained to have to get the best out of the program.
Hello from my side as well. I'm Kerstin Schilcher from the Austrian Energy Agency, and together with my colleague Altan Sahin, I was involved in the ENPOR project. We focused on two different measures. One was the development of low threshold information material and leaflet, and the other one was designing an educational program for social healthcare workers. The first one, the low threshold information material, we co-designed in the form of co-creation work within our React group. We had a energy advice service from Vienna on board who had already experience with working with vulnerable households. A lot of traditional energy advisors don't have that, but they had that, and they used information material which was very technical and very long in the description, and they realized themselves as well that a lot of the times doesn't really get them for the households to actually take action, especially energy advice situations are often with only one household member, and then it's very difficult for them to tell the other household members how to do it. And this is very important because all of these tips, which are easy to implement, but everyone in the household has to do it, and every day of their life. It's like if you want to see an improvement, it's like with sport. You have to do it every day or on a regular basis to really see an improvement. So we worked on that, and we took those leaflets in regard to electricity saving, heating, and also cooling, and translated them into illustrations and very little words. So it is very easy to understand. We tested them in 50 households. We got feedback that they are already very well understood, but still there were a couple of things which we had to improve. And we did that, and they are now the number one information material in Austria for energy advice for different stakeholders, we have interest from chimney sweepers to even religious communities to use it. And although I've said there's very little language on it, there is a little bit. And we also got the feedback that there's still a need to translate that. And we have now versions in 7 different languages. 200,000 leaflets have been already distributed, and more orders are coming in every day. The second one was also in relation to that a little bit, is that through the energy crisis, the energy advisors had a huge run on their offering of energy advice services, which is free of charge in Austria. But the capacity for them to do that is obviously very limited. The feedback was also that social healthcare workers and social workers who already go into the households, the topic of energy is on top of the list now. We know those households have competing priorities, but the energy topic was getting higher on the agenda all the time. So they had to advise their clients on energy, but they had no knowledge of that. So we developed a educational program, 4 modules for social healthcare workers. The first one was on the basics of energy. The second one, really important, is how to read an energy bill and also give advice on from that and what follows, and then on heating and on electricity. There was a huge run. 200 social workers have already been educated. They are already in the households, supporting them. They use, of course, our leaflets as well. And the interest is great from the social health workers. They take it on because they say we are confronted with those questions anyhow.
May I stop you? Because we're not supposed to, I told the others, we are not supposed to develop now. But, we will,
Thank you.
No, but if you have another recommendation, you can mention it, but don't develop it.
No, this is it.
Okay, because I don't want to feel like we over feel like we are a bit slightly unfair. So please, Flo.
I will try to keep it short, so we'll catch up on time. Hello, my name is Florian von Nong from Wuppertal Institute. I'm a senior researcher there. And within the ENPOR project, we were working on 2 cases. One was a prepaid app, which allows low-income households to better control their energy consumption and easily top up when they have funds available, so to avoid disconnections. And the other policy was the electricity saving check, which is administered by Caritas in association with the German Energy Agency Association. It's quite a similar concept, basically, as what is happening in the Netherlands in the energy box. It's also an energy device free of charge to low-income households. But I think the main difference is that those delivering the advice are long-term unemployed people. So there's also a social dimension or a labor policy dimension to it. And within the project, we identified 3 areas for improvement. One would be to improve the outreach, to reach more energy board tenants. Second, to improve the effectiveness of the advice, particularly looking at heating energy related advice. And the last one was to improve the databases to improve impact monitoring, but also to identify potentials for savings. And based on this, we focused on improving the effectiveness of the energy advice, also developing visual materials like they did in Austria. So there was quite an overlap and fruitful exchange also between the ENPOR partners. And the recommendations that we derived from our work was to increase funding to enable diversified outreach activities, but also to better enable systematic impact monitoring, as this is very important to know what's working and what's not. Second recommendation would be to improve cooperation with municipal actors, but also other stakeholders from the energy and social domain, also to improve interdisciplinary capacity building. And lastly, since the saving potential is somewhat limited in the rental sector, also to couple it with other initiatives to fund appliance and replacement.
Thank you.
So hello, Ana Maria Majdanjic from Croatia. I'm working as a senior expert at DOR, and in short, DOR is antenna for EPA, so energy poverty is like main topic that we are dealing as DOR in Croatia. So we have multiple projects, and ENPOR was for us interesting because we target private rented sector in country that 90% of the citizens are, let's say, owners. So we kind of introduced the new term hidden tenancy, because a lot of our citizens are actually living in the multi-apartment family or multi-apartment generation homes that, I don't know, father is living in one floor, son is living with his family on another floor, and when you are asking that son, he will say that he's owner, but in the end, when he needs to sign for the renovation, he actually needs his sign from his father. And we are lucky if he needs sign for his father, because we sometimes have problem with property issue, that sometimes the house is also on his grandparents that are already dead. So it's problem to have a renovation in Croatia. So we have this hidden tendency that he is not owner, but he's not paying the rent, but he's not the owner. So when we target the policy that we want to have connected with private rented sector, it was a program for renovation of family houses, because they are living in the family houses as a hidden tenancy, and also a program for energy renovation of multi-apartment buildings. So when we have started the ENPOR project, the programs already were finishing around 2020, and we start doing the new programs. So the biggest step is that we introduced energy poverty in these new programs. They didn't target immediately private rented sector that we wanted as a ENPOR project, but we start doing the gathering data on the field for the surveys, so we can maybe apply better public calls that are getting from that policy. And also we start having dialogues with the group meetings with ministries, that we want them to maybe apply our surveys to the new ETS system or social climate policy that we need to have done. So they have these initiatives in the split initiative in their mind, but we are thinking that also one of the recommendation was having energy poverty definition, to measure all these measures that we have, so impact of these measures on dealing with energy poverty, and maybe specific for Croatia is to deal with pre-grants for solving property issue problems, to have grant for the renovation, so you can get the subsidy in the end.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Edoardo Pandolfi from ENEA, the Italian Agency for New Technologies, Energies and Sustainable Development. I'm a senior researcher in the Energy Efficiency Unit. For the ENPOR project, we focused on the Italian Classe A, that is the national policy for information and communication capacity building campaign. So we focus on developing material that could be useful for energy poor people, and to incorporate more the concept of energy poverty in the information and communication campaign. We decided, also due to COVID and the difficulties in reaching energy poor tenants, to focus on building managers as an intermediary for tenants and landlords, so to incentivize investment in energy efficiency measures in the apartment and in the buildings. And also we focus on students as a facilitator that are very receptive to the issues of energy poverty and in general environmental issues, so how to improve comfort in the house and positively affecting also the environment, and so through them to reach their families and spread like positive behavior in their household. So we develop material, and very shortly, like the policy recommendation that we got out are basically the importance of communication, awareness campaign, measures that enable like behavioral change in people, and this has to be done to trustworthy like intermediaries, the importance. So as we were mentioning this morning, also the importance of something like one-stop shop could be very relevant in helping this exchange of information and creating like trustworthy intermediary, and after the importance also of public fund and subsidies to really like provide the funds to enable more important investment and deeper renovation in the house that goes beyond the behavioral change that they can put in place by themselves.
So, thank you. So, sorry for telling, but the idea was that after this first round, we go dig into a bit more into details of each of these policies, and I think you have partly done that as well as Martin on the energy box, because and your example as well, because indeed when you try to target energy poor tenants, it's also there is a language issues, and I think was it you or Florine, or maybe you, Martin, who mentioned this app. You mentioned the app, and I was wondering, because what we experience often, especially when we had another initiative where we tried to target homeowners, and we found that the digital tools are not the right tool to target most of the energy pools, but also the older generation. So I would just wonder how helpful is this app, because we come back to the issue of how not only the language of the tool we use, but also the type of tool we use, how relevant it is. I mean, I like your energy box because it's very pragmatic in a way. You have a thermometer, you have all these elements in the box that makes it, extremely pragmatic. So that's why maybe just to the three of you, so maybe on the app, if you want to start, Florian.
Yeah, sure. So the app, first of all, the app is also available as a website, so to accommodate also maybe older people who are not so fond of using their phone to top up the budget. But of course, we did a user survey also, and they're on average a little bit younger than what you would probably expect, which is particularly might be an issue in Germany, which is the second oldest society in the world. So we're aging very strongly. But otherwise, feedback on the app was very positive. It's clear that this is not a measure that can alleviate energy poverty in its form or in its root causes, but it's something that gives users a sense of control over their expenditure, and also avoids disconnections before they can happen. So,
how does it work?
The entity, it's basically you have an app and you have a visualization of your consumption over different time frames, and you can top up money and then use up that money until it's gone, basically. So it has been developed by a subsidiary of a public utility, and it's a white label product, so other entities can also use it. And the idea, why is a utility doing it? Obviously because of its public role, but also because debt management is a big financial burden on utilities and energy providers, and this is a mean also to reduce this.
Thank you. So does it work for electricity and gas as well, or?
No, this is just electricity.
Yeah, exactly. So because you don't have real-time smart meters most of the time for gas.
No, not yet. No.
Yeah, so the energy box is not working with an app, as you may know. And you also write that the digital way of communication does often not really fit with, let's say, the profile of energy poor people. If you look at the energy box, we did some investigations in how they reach out to people, and it was they do that in numerous ways. I think we calculated maybe 20 different ways of reaching out to people, like websites, still emails, of course, but also community meetings, flyers, and so on. So there are many different ways to reach out to the people. But in the end, we also found out that just door-to-door visits, so just ringing the doorbell, is the best way and the most effective way to reach out to people and to get them engaged.
Yeah, no, I just agree also from our experience. Reaching that target group for us works best if you actually have a trusted middle actor. We as the Austrian Energy Agency, we don't have access to those clients. Those group who can't access apps or also websites, we call them offliners, but a lot of the percentage of that group are offline. So at least if you want to access financing, it can be very complicated. We all know that. Even if I want to access some financing, some funding scheme, that is complicated. You need help for that. In Austria, we have one program where you get white goods exchanged for free after you had one visit by an energy advisor or energy social advisor. And so someone comes into your household and assesses your appliances, dishwasher, your fridge and things like that. And if they're an inefficient appliance, then you get an exchange for free, and it's all through public procurement.
Nice, very interesting. Does someone want to add something on this very specific point, the tools? And you mentioned also these reaching out, the specific expertise, and we come back to the discussion of this morning when it takes a lot of manpower to do that, and it's very important to have this local engagement. So I don't know, many of you mentioned that, the fact that you need to have this expertise. You talk about social workers, and some of you talk about technical experts, and you say that social workers, they know the energy pool, they know how to speak to them, but they don't know the technical aspect. And then you have on the other side the technical expert, who don't know how to speak to people, basically, even to us. So not even it's even more difficult with older generation or poorest household with a poorest background, or also different background, let's say, also immigrants, because indeed you need to speak the language. And you mentioned this very important aspect is often forgotten. So I heard that some of you have programmed to train the social workers, and others have programmed to train the technical experts. So I don't know if you want to add something on that.
Yeah, maybe. The electricity saving check is they don't train technical personnel, but they train long-term unemployed. And I think this is also one of the success factors of this program, because on the one hand, it helps people to reintegrate into the labor market. So they have a higher fluctuation, so people move on to other jobs after they've been doing this. And on the other hand, it also enables them to speak eye to eye to these households, because they also have been in this situation before, and they know what the problems can be just beyond not just, okay, where's the energy consumption, but what other problems are in the household. So I think this is one aspect that works very well.
Yes.
I just wanted to add something why in Austria we are concentrating on more on social healthcare workers than on energy advisors. In Austria you have 100 energy advisors all over Austria and 40,000 social healthcare workers. So the potential, of course, is way bigger if we focus on them.
Wow. That's quite scary. 100 experts on energy?
Yeah, 400.
400, sorry, 100. Okay, so slightly for all Austria is not a lot. So.
Also in the Netherlands, we are working with let's say long-term unemployed people, Florence. So in that sense, it's also quite similar. And what we did in our project is also that we attended conversations that these energy coaches or advisors had with the tenants. And that's where also the recommendations come from, that people need to be properly trained, because in those conversations we found out that in some cases those energy coaches are missing some specific energy skills to give proper advice, but also that they need proper conversation techniques or skills. Sometimes we saw that they are a bit judgmental on the, let's say, the behavior of people. And also they are not always aware that people living in energy poverty also have other stress factors like poverty in general and unemployment, so they have to work in a stress-sensitive way towards these conversations. So it's important that they are trained to deal with these issues.
I think it was Brevny this morning mentioning the stigmatization and the need to find the right way to talk to people and avoid this stigmatization. I don't know if anyone else wants to add anything on this specific point. Yes, please.
Yeah, just maybe because I happened to experience one of the advice firsthand, because we met on a couple of them just to get a feeling of how this actually goes down, and it's quite sobering, or not sobering, but also it's a good thing, I guess, to leave the ivory tower of research, and we tend to think a lot in energy terms. Oh yeah, we can reduce the consumption here. We have to change behaviors there and there, and then you go to one of these visits and you realize, okay, there's a lot going on which has nothing to do with energy, and I found that quite leveling and important also to how we design the material. Which needs to be practical also, not just practical for the advisors, but also practical to the realities of the people receiving advice.
And it's also, I think it was you, Mark, mentioning the fact that you need to avoid this rebound effect, and the fact that once you do the renovation, you also have to explain to people how to manage their energy consumption. So
yes, it's true, and the problem is not easy. We had the same thing with the sorting of trash. And in fact, what is succeeding now is through the children. So we have homework classes after hours, and with the children, they speak each other, the mothers speak each other, and so on, and that's working well. But I don't say it's the only solution. But it's easier when people with the same situation speak each other. And by the children also, you can interest them. For example, we gave 10 computers, and they have to set up the computers themselves and take it home. It's really by playing also that they will learn. So I say also the play and to have some playing and videos, because a lot of our tenants cannot read. So even reading something, it's quite a problem. So you have some video and you can see it, Facebook and all these things. It's just not playing but joking, and that's the way. But it's not easy. It's really difficult, in fact.
it's also linked to what you were saying, Eduardo, no? You were talking about training students, but he's talking about children, but it's with the same concept, right?
Yes, because I think what we found out that they really are very receptive to these topics, and probably more than older people that are more into their old way of doing things. So they really can go home and having benefited from all these suggestions and try to implement some change at home. And they can be an example that also parents and other relatives can really follow. And usually themselves, they are more keen in spreading what they learned. So I think a really good way to bring home suggestion to improve energy efficiency. And on this regard, I think also one aspect where we focus, I think, is interesting. Also, often energy poor household, they already try to save money in a lot of different ways. So one aspect that we try also to highlight were the health benefits of improving certain behaviors home. And the safety also aspect of certain behavior, and how to, when you do some minor intervention home, also the safety, the importance of to have it done in a certain way so it doesn't create additional problem, technical and for safety reasons. And I think these are aspects that are sometimes neglected. Instead, I think are very important also to catch the attention, because clearly health is always an important issue, and I think it's something that not only the money that they save, because sometimes they are already trying to save as much as possible, but also other benefits that they can get from energy efficiency behavior.
Yeah, and actually it's a very good point, because it's beyond energy efficiency, it's beyond all of that. We talk about safety. I think when we go to, it's also the occasion to talk about different aspects. I think it's, this week is also the European Fire Safety Week, so it's also, this aspect are also important. So it's well beyond energy efficiency. It's also, as you mentioned, the health aspect. So it's very, it makes lots of sense to combine all these elements when you go and you have the opportunity to directly speak to people and directly go and advise them. So we talk about tools. We talk about specific expertise, and I think two at least of you mentioned the one-stop shop. So it goes back to the same thing, but basically the one-stop shop should also be there, and it's been quite often mentioned this morning. So Anna-Marie, you want to say something on that, from your experience in Croatia?
Yes, we have. We also put the recommendation for one-stop shop because we have done also surveys, and I will just mention that we also use energy boxes when you are coming to the households and you want to do the surveys. Getting the small measures for the household, it's also an initiative to gather data because not everybody, not all the citizens are open to share data, especially financial data about energy, because those are also financial data. And also the energy poor households, at least in Croatia, they know how to save the energy. Actually, we don't need to advise them how to save energy. And our problem is sometimes that we want to make their households more comfortable, meaning that sometimes we need to increase maybe consumption of energy, because in Croatia, sometimes they just heat one room. So they are cold in a bathroom. And when you talk about one-stop shops, mostly those households are in rural areas. So you need to think about, would you establish one-stop shop in area of 500 people or in a city when you have other problems? So having one-stop shop in Croatia, we recommend it as a policy recommendation. And we have first one online, that our fund for renovation that I mentioned, those two programs. So they have online. But as a door, this is something that maybe you don't need the government to establish. You can do as NGO. So we have this, first we have Powerpool project where we established Center for Combating Energy Poverty, but we start to upscaling that to one-stop shop. And now we got live projects. So it's kind of Powerpool, yes, finished, but you have another line to maybe do things better, and so we established one-stop shops that we recommended, and we have also our government as a backup and say, yes, we want to have it in Croatia. So you can do it, but one-stop shop needs to be open to all citizens. So we can have one-stop shop and maybe Center for Combating Energy Poverty. So in one place. So I think that one-stop shop could be a solution, but they are open to all citizens, and you need to maybe track the subsidies of the government, and when you have some public calls for renovation, you need to target those energy poor households and maybe help them through the one-stop shop to apply for the subsidies. Because in Croatia, we have 100% subsidies for energy poor households, and this is one of the ENPOR policy that they map 387 buildings in Croatia in areas that are under protection of the government, meaning that those areas are socially poor, not energy poor. And they said, I don't care if you are owner, tenant, social housing in that building, everybody will get 100% of subsidy. And the problem is that we will establish not one-stop shop, but a Rehabita office that is kind of, ENPOR is finishing, Rehabita is starting, so we are going to use survey that we use in ENPOR to map all these citizens that live in this house, and we know that regardless that they are getting 100% of the subsidies, one of the recommendations is awareness, because those people are not still sure that they want to get signed and see, yes, you can do the renovation. They don't trust the government, they don't trust the local authorities, so we need one-stop shop or info centers.
Very interesting, and this matter of trust, I think we discussed quite extensively already this morning, the fact that even if you have a subsidy, even if you have an advice, it takes another step to convince people, and this is very, very important. I'm really looking forward to your project and see what's going to be the outcome there. Very interesting. I saw Flas is.
Maybe one question here, coming back to what also you said, Emmanuel. As we see that, and actually that could be reflected from all of you, is that would it make more sense if this type of subsidy measures, when we speak about renovation, are coupled or are in a package of other types of measures as well? What do I mean? For instance, it could be water sanitary measures or things like softer measures which have nothing to do with renovation, because renovation, you start thinking about payback time, you start thinking about it, but now if you fix your kitchen, you don't think about payback time. For example, that was what Jan Rosenau once said in a nice presentation, a colleague of Luis here. And it's true in the end of the day. So I would say that would it make more sense, for instance, in Greece, several once you had a program which we connected to the sewage system. It was renovation connected to the sewage system and all that with the old buildings. And these things sell better in a way. And you get easier into that. So I don't know if it would be applicable in your cases. Maybe to combine with broader types of measures, this thing.
Very good point. And I think specifically also in Croatia and in Italy, we have another issue with the seismic issue. And this is also very important to tackle. So it's as well. But I think people care much more about how resistant is my house and will survive another earthquake than just caring about energy.
Yeah, I will just jump in because now our energy renovation is connected with the structure of the house. So because we had earthquake 3 years ago in capital city, and now all the renovation are connected with energy renovation.
I'd like to respond to your remark, Vlasis. In the Netherlands, we did a survey on the energy box, and we asked what is the most important reason for you to adopt the energy box. And we carried out that survey before the energy crisis, and also, let's say, 1 year ago during the energy crisis. Before the energy crisis, the most important reason to adopt the box was a green living style or sustainable living style. And later on that changed into lowering energy cost. At that time it was the most important now it is the most important reason to adopt the energy box. So it depends also really on the context and where you are in.
Yes. As you know, in Greece, the program Exokonomou, it's a huge program aiming at the continuous and massive renovation of the building. So yes, in regards to all the previous discussed issues, the priority is to simplify the procedure, to reduce the administrative burden, but at the same time, it's required a more dedicated information to the energy poor households. It's not easy. Somehow we have to counterbalance on this because are contradictory. It's very good to have the online submission of the application, but we have to have in mind that the technological literacy of these people is not so advanced. For this reason, we proposed either to initiate a more targeted program for the energy poor household, or of course to continue the existing programs because you have a structure, and to have a dedicated part of this for the energy poor households. At this point, we discussed the need to door-by-door information of the energy poor household, where in our case, due to the fact that the households are supported by the energy inspectors, obviously the reskilling of them so as to apply a more effective approach based on the social science, how to approach, how to communicate, how to handle issues in order to avoid stigmatization, needs considerable retraining of all of them. So it is not easy. For this reason, we thought that the potential establishment of a one-stop shop will solve all these programs, because it will act as a central point where which will undertake the obligation to provide information. And in this point is crucial the role of municipalities, because they have experience due to the social services, and perhaps it will be easier compared to an engineer to explain what must be done for which reasons, or to persuade them to participate. So for us, we think that such a structure is more effective. I fully agree that it is easier to promote combination of interventions. Obviously, the cost will be increased, and this is a problem. For us, I think priority is the energy renovation to insulate the houses for the long-term alleviation of the problem. We have to have in mind that the new ED says that all the energy uses must be taken into consideration, perhaps in the few years, to integrate mobility poverty, which create additional pressure to the household's income, and all these issues. But we think that the main pillar should be the deep renovation of the buildings. And a final comment is that, okay, the participation of all these stakeholders is very crucial, as resulted by a REACT group. It is important not only to stay to the co-design of the measure, but it's important to co-implement, co-monitor, co-readjust, so it is a continuous process, all this, because all the conditions changes, perhaps additional problems will appear in the future which create additional pressure to this phenomenon.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Samuel. I also work for IACP, and my question is mainly directed at Martijn regarding the energy box. I really do understand the green and environmental aspect of it, but my question would be, are we not concerned that such a measure would actually still render or generate more cases of invisible energy poverty, because we are factually intervening in a situation like, okay, you can reduce your consumption of energy and therefore save X amount of money per year, but they are not actually receiving structural support to actually change the way that they live or their actual household, therefore shifting the responsibility from a governmental body or like a regional or municipal body to the individual behavior, which normally doesn't really have the capability to address this issue.
Yeah, I think you're partly right. I mean, if you look at the energy savings that can be achieved by introducing the energy box and the small-scale energy measures, it's about 10% of your energy bill. But the energy box is also meant as a kind of tool and conversation starter to think about what type of energy measures you can take as well. So next to these behavioral measures. But I think I also agree that, I mean, if you really want to achieve larger energy savings, you need other additional measures in terms of renovation.
Isn't the box a way to just raise the awareness and being a first step? First is one tool among a set of tools, obviously, yep. And also, I mean, as many of you say, people who are energy poor normally do care about their consumption, right? So they are very careful of what they consume already. So
that's not always the case. Sometimes people are totally not aware of their energy. So I think that's not entirely true, not always true, that people are not always aware of their energy bill because they have other priorities to take care of. As I said, I mean, maybe it's health related, it's about unemployment, finding work, taking care of children, so it's not on the top of their priority list to look into it.
Maybe I can shortly add to that, because clearly energy advice is always limited by design in terms of what it can do, how it can improve the situation. But I think there are some interesting developments also speaking about the Netherlands, where municipalities have bought shares of energy communities or energy cooperatives and have provided them to low-income households free of charge. And in the case of Germany, the electricity saving check, we're now starting a pilot project, whereas the municipality will provide solar modules for the balcony free of charge also for the households. So a little bit working more on the supply side of things and decoupling their energy bills from the fossil fuel based on a more pricey supply.
Thank you. Yeah, just to add as well, I think there's an example, a pilot study was done in Ireland, where it was very much coupled between health, health and the envelope of the house itself. So the deep retrofitting was undertaken to those households where there was a kind of a health concern, particularly around cardiovascular disease, that type of thing. So I mean, there are examples out there, and I think, hopefully, if that can be replicated in other countries, I think it would make a significant difference as well.
I fully agree, and I insist that the priority is to alleviate energy poverty, not to maximize energy savings. Theoretically, we have other instruments in order to achieve the energy efficiency target. The priority, according to my understanding, is to ensure that all these households will have the minimum energy comfort levels that are expected. So this is a priority. So yes, I expect the rebound effect. And it's interesting to see how we will measure in the new Article 8 of the new ED. But the priority is to combat on the long-term basis energy poverty? Yes, due to the fact that energy efficiency intervention will maximize all this, the avoided health impacts, will ensure the achievement of these minimum comfort levels, is for me the most significant solution, and as a secondary impact, it will deliver energy savings. But the priority is not to design the policies for the elevation of energy policy based on the energy efficiency potential.
No, just one thing, because in Italy we have many fiscal incentives. So one thing that was highlighted is like the important that really to be effective is like to really to streamline the process to access to this incentive, supporting what Christos was saying, because often the administrative part is very difficult. Sometimes people don't understand really the benefit that they could get from accessing that incentive, and this already in there's like, let's say, the average person, so a person that already has other problem will not even like engage into trying to get the incentive because he will see it as too cumbersome and too difficult. So I think this is already a great barrier, especially for energy poor households.
Also, one interesting point that was mentioned just before, but this rural area, because we speak a lot about energy poverty and a lot about energy poverty in city, the situation of housing in cities. But I had several discussions, including this morning with Pierre-Jean Coulon, and the fact that in rural area people don't really realize that they're energy poor because they are just used to this situation. They are used to live in houses that are just simply not heated, or they're used to more difficult conditions. So it's very difficult to target these areas. And I think this morning when Sean Kelly was telling us about the development of the negotiation on the PBD and the one-stop shop, and in the PBD, the proposal from the Parliament was to have a certain number of one-stop shop per number of inhabitants. But of course, what was very interesting in what he mentioned this morning is also now it's more like about the distance from a one-stop shop rather than the number of one-stop shop per community. So that's also very, I think, quite interesting and quite important, because often when you live in a rural area, you're far from everything, including far from any type of advice, and also far from any social workers or technical experts. And also sometimes you are far from digitalization, and you have this digital desert in still lots of rural area, and you also have a lot of obviously older generation living in rural area. So I don't know if you have any specific recommendation for this very specific sector. Sorry, it was not planned, but it just came to my mind because I think it's an important issue.
Okay, yes, in Greece, as you know, we have already developed the energy poverty definition, and we have the capability to analyze this definition for each prefecture separately. So we can compare some, let's say, urban prefectures, such as Attica, with other more rural. There is no common conclusion about the evolution of energy poverty, because each region, each area has its own characteristics. Yes, it is more probable for a rural area to address more severe phenomenon of energy poverty, but it has the capability to use biomass which can be used in the cities. Or in the regions that belong to the coldest climate zone seems to be more prepared, has a higher resilience compared to the Iceland. So, due to the fact that we have made considerable steps in order to understand and to study energy poverty, I think some critical parameters are missing. So it is important to continue to study this phenomenon on an annual basis, because I think that additional issues must be done. It's important to understand the energy behavior, to assess the effectiveness and the performance of the energy system. It's multidimensional, let's say, problem.
maybe mobile one-stop shop. So you have problem with rural area, then not one-stop shop that is placed in the central, but mobile one-stop shop, and that's maybe could be solution, because you cannot expect those people to come to the center, because we are talking there also energy poverty in transport, and there is no public system.
Yeah, this is a very good question. And actually, we learned last year at IACP that as part of the Social Climate Fund, there is a portion of funds that will be earmarked for the rural areas, but these are actually only for rural transport. So what we're doing in the project called Runoverty, that was just funded last year, is trying to alleviate energy poverty for rural homes. And we focus on 7 member states, and we will actually be rolling out renovation roadmaps, and it's per climactic region as well. So it's not just per member state, but it's for different climate regions. So if you are interested in this topic, you can just follow Runoverty, and we can speak later. But it is something that needs to be developed, and it's not really something that is focused on due to the lack of concentration of people. Usually funds are concentrated towards cities where you would be affected, have a larger effect.
I just want to share 2 experiences. We spoke about lifestyle, where I visit some tiny house for homeless people, and they don't have problem of cold. They say because they've lived during years in the street. So in fact, they have problem of eating. It's too hot, even in Belgium, even too hot in the summer. So sometimes also one who want to do everything the same way, it's not perhaps the best way. I don't know, just a thing where I said, you know. The other thing is that what we did, it's every year we have some student and they go and they visit the tenants. But they are not looking only on the problem of energy. They come, they explain how to put the temperature, to cut it for all the summer, to be sure that nothing is eating during the summer. It's a very simple thing. But also they are looking for example, on the fire detector also, because that's important also. And so it's transversal, and they are listening to the people problem in the house. And those sometimes not coming with specialists, you know, with their brain, with their knowledge. Sometimes it's good also to have a transversal view with other people, not very costly people, but that's not, it's also a way to learn and to visit people and to discover an association, to discover the problem of the poverty and so on. So that's a way also of, for the future generation to meet somebody and so on. So just to sharing 2 experience, it's not, once more, it's not the solution, but it's one solution which is working, not very costly, and which can come with some effect every year by just sending some student, explaining the student first, and going with the students for 2, 3 visits, 4 visits, and then they go along.
Well, we talk about a lot about that data, and you come back to the, having this data saying between rural, urban area. Also, I was looking for data about energy poverty according to tenure, and the latest data from EPOR, and from 2017, I couldn't find anything newest data. So that's very important to have this data in order to tackle this aspect, because, and it's one of your recommendation, I think, and one of the work you do, part of the work you do, right?
Exactly, it's very crucial to have data, and the most difficult issue is to specify a definition for energy poverty which will give you the capability for the bottom-up identification. For example, Eurostat and DGNR proposed 2 objective indicators. It's not easy to verify this in the case that you decide to design a targeted program and you want to identify with a bottom-up procedure the candidate, let's say, households. So yes, for me it is important to define energy poverty using some parameters which can be verified, controlled through a bottom-up approach. This is because in the end of the day, we have to find these households. For this reason, I say that perhaps the involvement of municipalities, due to their experience with the social service, will facilitate this approach, because they know which households are poor, so potentially this will be energy poor also, according to the definition. And it's imperative to continue the process of collecting data to analyze the phenomenon and trying to explain its evolution.
Thank you. Anyone want to add something on data, Eduardo, maybe? No? No. Oh, okay.
I support what Chris was saying.
Okay. Anyone on this one? Sorry, one last thing I wanted to mention, and I don't know if there is any other question from the floor. We talk a lot about engagement of action at local level, but engagement of certain specific experts, municipalities. Here I will speak for myself, but I think what is important is to engage all stakeholders. As we see in our associations, national level, so some of our associations are only homeowners association. And many of you spoke about the stigmatization, and we see that very well, that these people who come to the association for some specific advice, sometime in the discussion, you found out that these people cannot pay their energy bills. So that's one thing. Another discussion we often hear as well in our association is the fact that when a landlord has an tenant within some rent areas, the first step is often also the fact that he didn't pay his energy bills. So identify these issues as well can help both parties. So we are, some of our organizations, locally or some regional association we have, are trying to help their members, so not only the homeowners but also the landlord, to help to help their tenants to be able to pay their bill, and also give them some advice on how to improve, of course, the energy performance of their building. One last thing I wanted to add, a bit of publicity, if you don't mind, because we talk a lot about engaging people. What we have, obviously, as in our association, is the fact that we can directly engage with homeowners and with property owners. And what we try to do, it's a renovation tour. So we go in different places in Europe, so really at city level, local level, and we try to explain what's coming, what's the legislation framework in terms of energy efficiency, what's the advantages. We have a stakeholder discussion, and often we try to present concrete action, like one-stop shop, local one-stop shop when they exist. What are the funding in place for different categories, and also we mention some of these projects sometime when we have something relevant, and we see that it's very, very useful. It's of course a drop, because you cannot reach out to so many people when you go and meet them directly, but I think it's very important things to do. So, and we have one in 2 weeks here in Brussels, so that's why I wanted to mention that this time is for Brussels property owners. Right?
I fully agree, and one conclusion that was derived by the Greek REACT group was, as a proposal, the permanent establishment of a network with the participation of the main stakeholders to have a field for discussion, for a dialogue from all the participants, even if there are contradictory perceptions, attitudes, conflicts, etc. And I think that this is something that is proposed also by the new ED, who speaks in Article 23 for the energy efficiency partnerships, which will have totally for the energy efficiency this role. So the proposal was to have such a network in Greece in order to discuss different technical, social, data issues, etc. I think this must be a permanent network.
And I know that many of you talk about this collaborative network, and you are nodding, Kristen.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on that as well. Through our REACT group and through our discussions, it was also very apparent, I mean, ministries were in there, that we need some kind of coordination office on this topic. And actually in the new energy efficiency law of Austria, it is already written in that we will have a coordination office on energy poverty. The establishment is already under development. We already know who is going to do this. We will be involved from the Austrian Energy Agency as well to support them. And I think that is a very important step. But this will be more on the meta level, I will say. We are federal state, so we have a lot of federal provinces who will be involved, but getting together all the stakeholders. And we have learned for the last 2 years that the stakeholder map for energy poverty is huge. It's not just energy, it's not just social. It is really huge, and that is one of the great challenges, I would say.
Thank you. Anything on that before I close the discussion? No, thank you. So I'm not sure. I'm not a big fan of conclusion because I think we all heard what we heard, and you don't need me to conclude. But just one thing came to my mind towards maybe no stigma. So stigma from all sides, also from all sides. I think you need to bring everyone around the table and have a positive attitude. And I strongly believe having a positive attitude from all sectors. And also the fact that, energy poverty is obviously a multidimensional phenomenon, and it needs to be tackled from various different angles. And every action and every measure is welcome. And thank you for being here today. If you want to hear more about ENPOR, there is our website. There are the QR code you can find there. Mara, also please share your project, the one you mentioned, our rural energy poverty, and you also from Breveny and Laura's side, we will share information. We will try to send you all this information by email. Maybe it would be interesting for you if you are willing to receive an email from us, from the participant today. And if Marine and Omara are willing to do that, it would be very nice to share all this proceeding. And also one last thing, there will be somehow, I think, a recording from the event, so we will try to share that as well. So thank you for being here today, and thank you for this very interesting and very lively discussion. Thank you, bye. And also many thanks to the one who organized the event and for co-organizing from FEANTSA and from ENPOR side. Thank you. Anna, you want to say something?
I don't want to take much time, and maybe I will be a bit brave, and I will also do an advertisement just because we were touching on the issues of rural energy poverty, and also we mentioned firewood heating and coal heating in the discussions. We will have an event on the 6th of December on how to decarbonize rural, mostly homeowner communities that rely on solid fuel heating, and everyone is very welcome. And otherwise, congratulations on this work, and especially to deal with tenants in energy poverty, which is a very complex and difficult issue. So really congratulations and thanks a lot.